Hello, Pooja. Nice to have you with us.
Hello, Patricia.
Hi.
Thank you.
Welcome, Sister Ananda.
Yeah. Oh, she's joined. Okay. Welcome, sister.
Thank you, and all the best to all the organizers.
Thank you.
Congrats, Lata, Deepti, all the very best.
Thank you so much.
sister.
I can't see.
Hi, Flavia.
Hi, Ananda. How are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you doing?
Okay, going on. After a long time, we are seeing also.
I know we've all been in little cocoons.
Yes.
So,
I know.
Bubble.
hi, Vibhuti.
Hi. How are you, sister?
Really nice to see you. Vibhuti, how do you do it? Every time I look at you, you look younger.
Yeah. Working from home, I had such a harsh life. I
I
used to
know.
change 4 trains and four rickshaws to reach my destination. And now working from home, eating food of my choice,
Yeah.
having my coffee of my
Home
taste.
cooked food also, no?
Yeah, everything. Yeah. So
Good.
that makes difference, no? And commuting 4 hours saved.
That's what
First time in my life in Bombay.
I can imagine.
5 years of traveling.
It's so nice to see you.
Yeah, I know. Same here. So many friends will be meeting today. Flavia, we have met twice in December. I'm just sending link to those who have not been
Oh, okay.
able to join. Got them.
Hi, Christine.
No, some of the principals and all, no? Principals of SAP.
Hi, how are you, Ananda?
Very well. Nice to hear your voice again and see you again.
Yeah, I've been after some time for a while, no?
I'm so glad they were able to involve you in this and that you agreed to be a part of it. Because one way or the other, we wanted you to be doing something with us. So that's great.
Anything for Sophia College.
Yeah, she's an alumnus.
Yeah.
It's my college, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, Geeta.
And I was thrown out so many times. For
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
So good.
Ananda. I think I'm not an alumnus of the college, but I keep coming back.
But you're very much a part of us.
Yeah, she's very much.
We were a part of you.
All our courses and our webinars and our gender laws.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So
always.
you are extension, part of us.
I'm listening.
How have you been, Dr. Ananda?
I'm very well, thank you. I was just asking you the same question. How have you been, Geeta?
Fine,
She's
thank
very
you.
All well? That's good.
Yes, thank you.
Her Facebook lessons are so popular. I am copying, pasting, and sharing with other students.
Wow.
She
That's
writes
great.
with pen, and so beautifully she makes diagrams and concepts. And
Yeah. And she's such a good teacher that everything gets clarified so beautifully.
Yeah.
That is
Very simple, lucid.
amazing.
Style.
Yeah. Very lucid.
Yeah, very lucid. Good, we make a nice team.
Yes, wonderful team. I'm very pleased.
Very good. So our partners from Australia, they are also here. Co-organizers.
It's quite late in the evening for them now.
For them, yeah, it is very late for them.
Would be late evening by now.
4.5 or 5 hours.
5.5 hours.
Or 5.5. Okay.
Yeah.
Unless they're in Perth, in which case it's 3.5.
Yeah.
Okay. I think Sydney, no?
Sydney, then 5.5 hours.
5.5. Yeah, correct.
Now there people are in 32 have joined.
I think we will have to wait for a while, actually.
Yeah, because the link was changed, no, last moment.
Correct.
That is the reason, because people must be trying that with that old link. My first thing I did was that old link to delete. I deleted old link.
Ananda, has the new course started now?
Yes.
How many students per
No,
MA?
it's small. It was 8. We just about, because we also started a little late.
Yeah.
Correct.
But I'm hoping that by next year we'll get more.
Yeah.
More of
So how many as of now?
8.
8. Okay.
Yeah. So it's fair enough. It's break-even point.
Yeah.
So at
Okay.
least we
Yeah,
can
because
afford to keep it
As
going.
per UGC norm 5, you need minimum 5.
Yeah. So we've got 8, so we're safe.
There's a one query yesterday also, so I have directed her.
Oh, good. I'm so glad.
She's into corporate, but they said if she does any women's studies, and that is she's from Tata Trust.
I see. Okay.
I think Xavier's has also started a new degree course now, no?
In women's studies,
No.
In
Social
policy. Yeah, policy.
social policy that they have for last 3 years. I've been going there to teach.
Because I got a note from them.
Yes.
And,
Avanish Kumar started it, but now he has moved on. But the course is good, very good course. Social policy.
Yeah, correct. You know, it's so good to see that the youngsters are interested in these topics, no?
Yes, very important.
Otherwise, this whole fight of so many decades will just get lost, no?
Correct. And UGC, there is at least UGC, you don't see much. It's very lukewarm in its approach, no, to women's studies. So you have to manage without their blessing.
Funding.
Even blessing us.
Yeah.
But now with autonomy, we have we can.
There is a lot more space.
Correct.
Within which one can experiment and try things out, and works well.
Especially colleges with A+.
Sister Linda Lane is joining us.
Oh, is she? Okay.
I think she's joining in just.
Okay.
Why we had to change the link?
We upgraded it, Vibhuti, from 300 to 500.
Okay.
Because there were 700 and something
710
registrations.
Yeah.
So we needed to upgrade our Zoom account for that. Yeah. Hi, Professor Lane. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah, he's
Conrad, congratulations. You've done a great job, huh?
I know.
Well, it couldn't have been done without so many people involved.
Yes. And roped us in by minute.
Yeah. That I demanded. I said, please share minute by minute.
Oh, you did that.
Yes, madam. Aren't you able to join? Hello. મને ખબર પડી મેં જોયું એટલે તમારે જોઈન થવું છે ને મોકલો. હા. ઓ હમણાં એ લોકોએ અપગ્રેડ કર્યું 300 માંથી 500 નું એટલે લિંક ચેન્જ થઈ ગઈ. I am just sending it, WhatsApp પર. Just check.
We have sent it to everybody, Vibhuti.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting continuously. I'm inundated with the messages and calls.
Vibhuti ma'am, the problem is we never shared a earlier link with the participants. The new link only was shared with the participants. So there was.
She has a
any confusion.
Okay, there is a possibility that they must have, like the link must have gone in their spam folder. So I request everyone who's getting the call.
Yeah, that is
Please
happening.
ask them or request them to check their spam folder, because many calls that I received, they actually found it in their spam folder.
Yeah,
correct.
Because this is a new email ID for them to get the email, so it goes in spam sometime.
And it looks institutional, which may sometimes.
And we are also live on Facebook right now.
Yeah, this one is a
खत्म
vice principal
फेंक
of
दिया?
MMP Shah College.
नहीं नीचे बहुत रहते हैं उसको
Okay,
फेंक
that's
दिया
nice.
इधर डालो
PN
Yes,
Joshi College
Susan is
principal
also
got
saying
it.
she found it in her spam.
Yeah, it goes in spam folder sometime. That's the reason.
Yeah, got it.
I'm going to switch it on.
Hello, can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes, Darren.
Great.
Hi, Linda. First time after so many years.
Yes, good morning. So
How are
happy
you?
to see
I
you.
know.
How nice
Yeah.
to see you.
Ages.
Now we have your WhatsApp number, so now you are on our hit list. But nearly 80
I kind of understood that.
It depend only on Facebook. Not okay.
But that's perfectly okay. That's perfectly okay. I'm always, I'm prepared as long as I can arrange for it to meet my schedule here at work. So it's
You are
good.
a veteran, yeah. You can speak extempore. You know all our friends, yeah?
I'm sorry?
You know our friends. Flavia, she's a
Yes, I think we've met.
Yeah.
Yes.
Christine.
Hi, hi.
Hello.
Hi,
Yeah.
Linda.
Hi, how are you?
Dr. Linda Lane
Okay,
from
I'm doing
Sweden.
okay.
What's
I
that?
have to say, I thought this was going to be a kind of small gathering. I had no idea you were going to be so many, so I'm a bit nervous.
710 registered.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So at least we understand that this is a subject that is of interest for a lot of people, and that's important, isn't it?
It's also Zoom, Facebook, and YouTube.
Okay.
Participants.
Ma'am, right now we are on Facebook, live on Facebook. We are trying our level best to get on YouTube, but I'm not getting that option here. So we are trying our level best. But it is all live on Facebook right now.
Yeah. A principal you have met, no? Dr. Ananda Amrit.
No, we haven't met. Hello,
I don't
Professor
think we
Lin.
have. Yeah. I think maybe it was not at the time I visited you. It's been many years now,
Yes,
so.
yes, that was in 2012, 13.
Yes.
Dr. Professor Conrad, he's one of the main organizers.
Good afternoon, everyone. And before we begin, I'd like to go through a list of do's and don'ts for all the participants here. Request you to please keep on mute when you're not giving an input. Please turn off your video to avoid bandwidth issues. Please use the chat box to ask your questions in the question and answer session. And keep your questions concise and raise only topic-related questions in the chat box. Please don't use the chat box for random conversations. We suggest you to use earphones or headphones for better audio clarity. In case you get logged out, please use the same link to join again. The conference is live on Facebook and on YouTube. So in case you're not able to join in again on Zoom due to a capacity constraint, please do join in on Facebook or YouTube. Pictures and screenshots taken during the meeting may be used by the organizers on their social media channels. This meeting is being recorded. An e-certificate will be issued to all the participants after the session tomorrow. It is mandatory to fill the feedback form link to get the certificate. The feedback form link will be posted at the end of the last session conference tomorrow, and the link will be open for 45 minutes only. Thank you.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to everyone who is gathered over here. We have participants from 14 countries that include Pakistan, Nepal, Ethiopia, Australia, England, Kenya, Mauritius, Vietnam, Indonesia, Sweden, Canada, and of course, India. We are honored to have our panelists from 5 countries: Sweden, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and India. And all you participants, all of you all belong to various disciplines that include academicians, researchers, faculty from schools and colleges, social workers, grassroots workers, advocacy group, lawyers, medical practitioners, and persons from the corporate world. Welcome. I'd like to just recite 4 lines which you have all probably heard and which I will also translate into English. And then we will go on with further procedures. Asato ma sadagamaya, from ignorance lead me to truth. Tamaso ma jyotir gamaya, from darkness lead me to light. Mrutyurgama amrutam gamaya, from death lead me to immortality. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Almighty peace, peace, peace. My dear participants, I now hand you over and give the spotlight to Ms. Dept, who will introduce Dr. Sister Ananda Amrit Mahal, the principal of Sophia College, Mumbai, Autonomous.
Thank you, Father, for beginning this international conference on an auspicious note. I now request our principal, Dr. Sister Ananda Amrit Mahal, and the director of the Sophia Centre for Women's Studies and Development to please address all those gathered here. Sister. Sister, you're on mute.
As Father Conrad said, good afternoon, good evening, good morning. It is wonderful to be part of an event of this kind which spans the globe and spans all our time zones. This particular conference on gender sensitization and protection of the rights of children and of senior citizens has been a cherished dream for the Women's Centre, for the Centre for Safeguarding and Human Formation, and for the Department of Psychology of Sophia College. They've all worked very hard to make this happen. I want to thank very specially Father Conrad Narona, Sister Patricia, Dr. Lata Pujari, and Ms. Dept, who have really taken painstaking detail to work out every possible area of this conference. I know that many eminent panelists have been invited and very, very eminent academicians as moderators, as well as activists who have been trailblazers in this area. So I'm not going to say very much about this topic, except that I would like to share one experience that has been a totally defining experience for the way in which I personally have viewed this subject. When we were novices, once a week, we used to go to the mental hospital at Yeroda and spend 2-3 hours with the little girls there in that ward. There was one little girl called Rajeshri who was extremely fond of me. She'd come, the minute we arrived there, but she'd barely give us time to get off our bicycles, and she would come running like this and, want to be cuddled. Come stand very close to me to be cuddled. But the moment I put my arm around her, she would pull away. And I could never understand. And I could never ask her because Rajeshri would not speak. She never spoke. She was always like this, in this very fetal position, almost, from head to waist, more or less, in this fetal scrunched up position, and the rest of her walking around, etc. She was about 10 years old, maybe. And then one day I realized what the problem was somewhat, because Rajeshri had dirtied her dress, and so, as was the custom where they only had one change of clothes, if you dirtied the one that you were wearing, you ran around with no clothes on. So she was running around naked, and I realized that her genitals had been really badly mutilated, probably with a knife. I was able to find out that Rajeshri had been admitted to the hospital, mental hospital, at the age of 3. And from that time, she had been in this scrunched up fetal position. From that time, she had never spoken. So obviously, whatever that traumatic experience was something that had happened before that. And even today, the child wanting the cuddling of a child because she was still a child. But the moment we tried to give it to her, she would pull away because it must have evoked memories of an experience that was impossible to endure. She's in my heart today as I speak of this event, and as I wish all of you all the very best on this journey, which is an effort to ensure that there are no more Rajashris in our country, in our world. That no child has to go through that kind of torment again. All the very best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sistananda Amrit Meher, for sharing your deeply moving personal experience and your encouraging opening words.
Only
We are very Please request all the participants to ensure that they are muted to the conference. Unless you have an input, please stay on mute. Thank you. We are very fortunate to have with us Professor Linda Lane for the keynote address to begin this international conference with. Linda Lane, a native of the USA, is a senior lecturer at the Department of Social Work at the University of Gothenburg, Sweden. Her published research focuses on the importance of social policy and categories of difference such as gender, class, and ethnicity for gender divisions of labor. Since 2017, she is actively engaged in a research project that aims to study gender empowerment and sexual harassment prevention in workplaces. We welcome you to this forum, Professor Lane, and I request you to deliver your keynote address.
So, thank you very much for the warm introduction, and it's a pleasure to be with you today. I would like to thank Professor Vibhuti Patel for reining me in to this conference today, and I'm very pleased to be here. I would also like to thank Professor Naringa for the invitation and for the opportunity to deliver this short talk today. I would also like to thank Mr. Himanshu Raut, Chairman for Age Well Foundation in Delhi, who was kind enough to introduce me to safeguarding of the elderly in the Indian context. This is important as we don't really focus safeguarding as a central issue in the Swedish context. On the other hand, what is important and what I learned from him is that while I was trying to gain insight into the plight and the situation of the elderly in India and trying to understand the idea of aging in place, what I came to realize is that there's a link between elderly abuse and care. And this is what I want to talk to you about today. That is how I perceive abuse and care as two sides of the same coin. Now, I completely understand that the focus of the conference is both on children and on the elderly. And I would like to begin by giving a kind of short definition of the way I use the concept of safeguarding. I will also try to explain how the concept relates to vulnerable groups. And I will briefly discuss how the COVID-19 pandemic has enhanced and revealed gaps in institutional arrangements between laws and actions and inequalities of gender, ethnicity, and livelihoods. My central argument again is that to achieve effective, sustainable safeguarding, we need to support and develop cares and caregiving. At the end of this short talk, I will try to mention some ideas and suggestions that I have that maybe will put us in that direction. Now, I understand safeguarding as a range of activities aimed at upholding an individual's fundamental right to life and safety and free from abuse and neglect. For me, this is a universal right. It's the right for everyone, and it is guaranteed via the United Nations protocols, European Union directives, national constitution, laws, local regulations, you name it. However, there's often major differences between formal institutional laws and rules and the informal societal norms and values we live by in our everyday lives. We can say that the formal rules are those that we aspire to. This is the direction we want to go. And when we cannot fulfill these aspirations, vulnerabilities arise. I understand vulnerable groups as a group or a population within a country that, due to its specific characteristics, are put at higher risk of being excluded from social services, from resources, and they may be specifically those groups that are most in need of assistance. Vulnerability arises and is sustained by differences in our societies. Since countries, nations, states develop at different rates over time, vulnerability and vulnerable groups will also differ. Now, how we meet the needs of the vulnerable will depend on the norms and values in our societies. How are they included? What and how much of our common resources do we distribute to them? How are they valued? Importantly, wherever we look, we find that children and the elderly represent two groups of vulnerable peoples in every society. Now, while in ordinary times, we may define or decline to define and address the needs of vulnerable groups. They are not like us, they're different, they have different social classes, different ethnicities, etc. But this COVID-19 pandemic may care facilities, incidences of aggression, neglect, abuse, both physical and mental, of elderly increased. Or we can say that the pandemic revealed the level of abuse. The elderly were more likely to be denied their rights to adequate medical care, and disparities in access to even basic medical care between the rich and the poor, between urban and rural, between various ethnicities and religious groups became apparent. In the pause between Delta and Omicron, we also observed a rise of theft of property and other forms of victimization of the elderly. What I argue in this short talk is that the elderly are caught in a paradox. On one hand, everyone professes to love and revere them. They are mythicized as sources of wisdom, and we claim to honor them in all things. On the other hand, in modern societies, they are also a burden. They drain families economically and emotionally. Much of the abuse mentioned previously is well known to people like yourselves who are working to safeguard the elderly and other groups. The pandemic merely brought it to the attention of the public through press coverage. However, what we failed to mention is the fact that the perpetrator is often a member of the family or someone employed with a duty to care. We talk about the elderly's rights as if they are autonomous, as if they are not dependent on a physical person there to secure them. Therefore, I argue that to secure and safeguard the elderly, we as a society must support and value the role of the caregiver and caregiving. Now, who are these carers? Well, caregiving has been the expectation of women. And everywhere in the world, wherever we look, women are 3 times more likely to be caregivers than are men. A report from 2015 by Help Age India revealed that of all the care given in cases of physical care for instrumental activities of daily living, 68% of that was performed by daughters-in-laws in the household. And of course, this has an impact on the whole family. And as COVID-19, the pandemic made that abundantly clear. We find that, for example, in some studies, that about 30% of caregivers are suffering from severe or moderate levels of caregiving burdens. That is, they're exhausted, they're frustrated, they're tired. Another study showed that 44% of caregivers report physical strain, that it's not just the mental and emotional side of caring, it is also the physical side of caring. The good news here is that studies also show that supporting caregivers in their efforts to be good carers can lower the burden of care. Now, it is important to note that most older persons want to live with their children, even as they are being abused. It is the most preferred, emotionally satisfying living arrangement for them. But at the same time, we need to admit that this causes disruption in the family. And we need to find ways to continue to provide functional and high-level care and support to those who are providing the care for their loved ones. Therefore, from my perspective, a well-supported caregivers are a necessity for a well-safeguarded elderly. So we support caregivers, we support the safeguarding efforts. We cannot continue to deny that caring is work, that is experienced as a burden, and when carers are tired, frustrated, economically and emotionally challenged, they may do harm. Thus, while aging in place is a beautiful idea, it is facing many challenges. Firstly, the demographic change, that is, the pool of possible carers is declining. Reduced infantility, mortality, improvements in education, employment opportunities for women, all of these things mean that women have other choices. Are we allowing them the possibility to make them? When they are not allowed, or when we say that this is a duty for women, we are increasing the possibility of conflict in intergenerational caregiving between the caregivers or the generation who needs it and the ones who are there to provide it. Furthermore, women are making other choices. They perform more of the work, but what is there to say that they will continue to do so? How can we keep denying women the opportunity to realize their educational dreams and career dreams? And this calls into question, how do we replace them? Can we replace them? How can we think about this in the future? We're also seeing the repercussions of migration, and I'm not just talking about migration from India or the United States or Sweden to some other country. I'm talking about interstate migration. That is, young people leaving rural areas to find or seek their dreams in urban areas. This means that we have a large number of elderly alone in rural areas, or, in the Swedish context, we say glesbygd. That is, it's the less populated areas of the country. These may also be the areas where the resources are less. So we have to consider cost as well. The cost of caregiving is the alternative cost, I would say, of using our energies and our other activities, our resources to do other things. So I think we need to think about how we use our resources and what we want to do with them. So from the perspective of the elderly person, home-based care is preferred. They want to stay with their family. And family caregivers will continue to be the backbone of care provision for elderly people in both developed and developing countries. And while governments have recognized the need to support present and future caregivers, they have not prioritized them in national budgets. Instead, many countries continue to live in denial of the changing gender distribution, as if women and girls are an inexhaustible resource that even in future will be available for the caregiving sector. This is not a sustainable solution. So if it isn't, how can we think about what is going to happen in the future? How can we think about that? And what can we do? Now, I'm sure you have lots of other ideas and suggestions. This is just some of the things that I've been thinking about, and I'll just put them out there, and maybe you can continue to talk about them during the rest of this conference. Number one for me is we need to debunk the idea that men cannot be caregivers. Don't men love their moms and dads? Don't boys love their mothers? Of course they do. But if our social norms and values do not permit them to be a part of this caregiving function within their families, it means that the burden unshared will be on the shoulders of their wives or their daughters. So, of course, men should be invited. They should be sensitized to the values of caring, and we should help and support them to become good carers. Care shared relieves the care burden, and as an end research, it also reduces abuse. We need to sensitize employers to the needs of employers who are also carers in their families. We forget when we buy care. We few perhaps who have the wherewithal to purchase care from the market. We can buy somebody in or to perform the caregiving in our households. We forget that carer is also a carer in their own families. And when the burden of that caregiver is exhausted due to extreme demands, low pay, all of these things they contribute to a ground for abuse. Let us rejoice in having this possibility, but also let us see beyond our own needs. Yeah. We need to create safe places where caregivers' voices can be heard. That is, where they can talk about the frustrations of caregiving in a way that is safe and kind of seek the help and comfort of others in the same situation. And since I work at a school of social work, I would like to talk about the possibilities of having our social workers involved in this process. They are trained. It is their mission to see and enhance people's well-being, both the cared and those that they're caring for. So social work in the field of gerontology can support the elderly, their families, and the elderly community, as well as the larger social environment. Thus, social workers can contribute to and foster cooperation between governmental, academic, and civic society partners to create and sustain better services for elderly, always keeping in mind that the level of vulnerability will vary depending on time and place. In the longer run, I think we need to synthesize government and policymakers to the needs of caregivers. Caregiving is a work, and it should be recognized as such. We need to demand a commitment of funding and resources to education of gerontologists and establishment of institutions to study and gain insight into the process of aging in modern societies. Simply addressing the aged's medical needs is not enough. And finally, to understand how the elderly, their carers, caregiving, and family are interwoven, we need to analyze and capture experiences of differences of different groups of women, men, and other groups. The analysis must map pathways through which gender roles, patriarchal norms and relations reinforce caregiving roles, and I would add, its reverse, abuse and neglect. So this is what I have to say. I thank you for listening, and I hope that these words and these short comments are fruitful as you continue through the program. So thank you very much for your time and for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lane, for your thought-provoking and insightful speech to inaugurate this 2-day international conference. The focus on abuse and neglect in vulnerable groups, as well as the existing gender bias in caregiving roles that you have explained so beautifully in your talk, does set the tone for further discussion in the coming sessions of this conference. So thank you so much. And I now hand over the proceedings to Father Conrad Narona for playing the video on Majlis. Thank you.
Majlis is a center for rights discourse and legal initiatives to address issues of women and children facing violence.
It's a very scary, difficult terrain that you are traveling when you access criminal justice system. It's not easy. Imagine poor, marginalized women who are saying, I want my right.
Registered as a society and public trust in 1991, Majlis is a team of women lawyers and social workers who work for the protection and promotion of women and children's rights through legal representation, advocacy, and training.
It was very important to create a space where women can come and talk, we can understand the problem, and we can strategize for them what is best.
It provides social and legal support to women and children who are victims of sexual violence. Majlis is based in Mumbai, Maharashtra, India.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here this afternoon. I'm excited about all the conversation that we are going to have in this 2 days conference on gender sensitization and protection of the rights of children and vulnerable adults. Gender sensitization is a basic requirement to understand the needs of all genders. It helps us to examine our personal attitudes, beliefs, and question the realities that we believe we know. The present situation compels us to examine and question the application of the rights of children and senior citizens. When one group thinks that it has limited rights and the other is under the impression that they have limited resources to execute the rights. Therefore, we have a first panel to discuss on perspectives on gender sensitization and rights of children and senior citizens. I take some moments to give a quick introduction of our eminent panelists for the first panel discussion. So our first panelist is Professor Vibhuti Patel. Professor Vibhuti Patel is a founding coordinator of the Sophia Centre for Women's Studies and Development and also a founding member of Indian Association of Women's Studies. Currently, she is a board member of the School of Gender and Development Studies, Indira Gandhi Open University. She was professor at the TEAS Advanced Center for Women's Studies as well as at the SNDT University. Our next panelist is Ms. Pooja Taparia. Ms. Pooja Taparia is a founder and chief executive of Urban, a globally recognized award-winning NGO working towards the elimination of child sexual abuse in India. Based in Mumbai, Arpan is a leading voice in the space of CSA and uses advocacy and research to push for policy and systematic change at the local, state, and national levels. We welcome you, ma'am. Our third panelist is Professor Daryl Higgins. Daryl Higgins commenced as the director of the Institute of Child Protection Studies in February 2017. His research focuses on public health approaches to protecting children and child-safe organizational strategies. A registered psychologist, Professor Higgins has been researching child abuse impact and prevention, family violence, and family functioning for over 25 years. We welcome you all. So for this panel discussion, we have an eminent moderator who is a feminist legal scholar and a women's rights lawyer. A pioneer of the women's movement, she has worked consistently on issues of violence against women. She is the founder trustee of Majlis, which was started in 1991 to provide litigation help and quality legal services to women. Her more recent engagements have been with democracy, secularism, and human rights. So we welcome you, ma'am, Advocate Flavia Agnes. Now, I hand over the entire control of this session to our moderator, Advocate Flavia Agnes. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Lata. It was really wonderful. I start with congratulating Father Conrad. It was his idea on which he worked consistently and got many of us involved into this project. And today it has culminated into this seminar, which is attended by a large number of students and others. So congratulations, Father Conrad. Our first speaker in this session is Dr. Vibhuti Patel, Professor Vibhuti Patel. So I invite all the panelists, first of all, please keep your timings. You will get an alert when the time is up. I know there's so much to say, but very little time. So over to Vibhuti. Vibhuti, please unmute.
Thank you, Flavia. It was really pleasurable to work with this team, and it has now crystallized into such an important event. I would be highlighting on pre-birth elimination of girls in our country that has been happening as a result of sex-selective abortions over the last 50 years. The sex ratio at birth in India has become more masculine in the recent decades. The imbalance in sex ratio stems from strong son preference combined with declining fertility and availability and excess of sonographic scanning during the pregnancy. The practice of gender-biased sex selection continues, even though India has enacted laws banning use of prenatal diagnostic techniques for sex selection. And as per UNFPA 2020, the instances of gender-biased sex selections are obviously not recorded, but numbers of cases have been estimated indirectly based on deviation of observed sex ratio at birth at a natural level. It is estimated that close to 4 lakhs female births are missed in India annually as a result of this kind of gender-biased sex selection, amounting to 3% of female births. The degree is very high in most states with northern and western region, and also in the Uttar Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, and low in or negligible in most of the states in eastern and southeastern southern states. If we see that it all started in 1972 when Amul Dairy introduced sex selection for cows and buffaloes because female fetus was more valuable for them for dairy industry, and they used to eliminate the male fetus. But the same thing happened in my community, Patidars of Gujarat, in central Gujarat, it happened. And wherever the dairy industry was very prevalent, there you saw the sex selection started happening very in a massive scale. Doctors would tell us that amniocentesis and appendicitis are our bread and butter. They would share experiences and jokes about you just make one slit for anybody with stomachache and take 10,000 rupees. So there was a lot of controversy and about this issue. In the early 80s and 90s, we formed Forum Against Sex Pre-Selection and Sex Determination. It used to meet in Women's Center where Flavia, you were a full-timer. And what we have seen that even after this kind of a very 30-year-old campaign, what we see that first law also came in Maharashtra in 1888. In 1994, we had a central legislation curbing prenatal diagnostic techniques. And in 2002, we also included pre-selection. So even using the in vitro fertilizer and more sophisticated new reproductive technologies for son preference or sex selection was banned. Now, the question here is not only the question, but changing the mindset of people. It's also the doctors, it is a whole big industry, medical industry, and also the mindset of the people where the son preference and daughter aversion are extremely strong. We need to change the kind of, and it is not only a problem of our country. There are 80 countries in the world where we see the sex ratio is adverse. Currently, globally, if we see the sex ratio has been adverse, but it is not that we can't do anything. We have to continuously hammer. This government has taken initiative in starting, judicial implementation of Preconception Prenatal Diagnostic Act. There is a lot of portrayal of women and girls, which is discriminatory, that has to be reworked, and that we have to challenge that. So reduction of discrimination against women and girls in all spheres of life and promotion of gender equity through affirmative action by state and civil society is very, very important. We need to change the mindset and the value system, customs and tradition that promotes daughter aversion and son preference. All the blessings which a newly married bride gets is be thy be the mother of 8 sons, or be thy be mother of 100 sons, or be thy be mother of 10 sons. That ideology has to go. There has to be accountability of medical professional, and as the medical ethics they need to practice, that they can't use the new reproductive technology for femicide. And we need to counter these beliefs that it is the shortcut which people seek, that it is better to kill female fetus than give a birth to an unwanted female child. That is, so many academicians have put forward the argument that if girls are women, Indian women don't know girls, why can't they get rid of them? No, instead of seeing the life of misery, it is better not to be born. But I think this logic is a very, very faulty. It is fatalistic, and it eliminates victims of male chauvinism and doesn't empower these victims. So I think it's very technodox also cash on prevalent prejudices against girls instead of challenging the anti-women practices such as dowry, or instead of they display that better 5,000 now than 5 lakhs later. So spend 5,000 now so that you can save 5 lakhs later in terms of dowry. So this is a very, very negative logic. It is victimizing the victim. So it is very important. The same psychophants also talk about when it comes to poverty, they would always say instead of eliminating poverty, they want to eliminate poor people. So this kind of logic is totally unacceptable, and we need to strengthen the both state and civil society. We have to come together and say that daughters are not for slaughter. We have to eliminate inequality, not women. We have to destroy dowry system, not daughters. So I think this is in nutshell, what the women's movement, the health movement, and the ethical professionals have to say. And over the last 50 years, it's a very long journey of fighting against this kind of practices. We have tried both the legal route, judicial route, also route of mass campaign and public education, but we have a long way to go. Thank you.
Sorry, yeah. Thank you so much for having this very precise, concise presentation, which has brought in all the issues concerning the elimination of female fetuses to medical technology and what's happening in India today. There's been a major struggle, and despite 35 years of changes in the law and campaigns by activist groups, we still have this problem. We'll have questions later, but I now invite Pooja to have your presentation. And welcome, Pooja. And it's nice to have you with us, despite your illness, and that you recovered fast. We were all praying, so you're most welcome. And you have your 8 minutes now.
Yes, thank you so much, Flavia, and very glad to have been invited on this conference. Thank you so much, Professor Conrad, excuse me, and glad to be on this panel with all of you. I'm going to focus on the issue of child sexual abuse. I am an entrepreneur, Bombay-based entrepreneur, and I've spent the last 15 years raising the issue of child sexual abuse and doing grassroots work in 3 districts of Maharashtra, and also scaling our work pan-India. It started a 15-year, no more than that, when I watched a play, 2004, which showcased the trauma of a child sexual abuse survivor. And I was so shocked to see that. I vowed that, we must do something about it. There was hardly any work happening by the government on addressing that issue. And not to say that other forms of child abuse are not important to work on. Yes, they are. However, child sexual abuse is a huge taboo. People don't want to acknowledge it. People don't want to tackle it. And therefore, I chose to focus very specifically on the issue of child sexual abuse. And the journey began in 2006. We were then a 2-member team. Today, we are a 100-member team, and we're working pan-India. I'll give you some highlights of the program, of what we're doing, what is the solution we found. So we decided earlier on that let's focus on prevention. Government data by that time in 2007 showed us that every second child in this country is vulnerable to sexual abuse. 53% boys and 47% girls. Just see, 53% boys, right? We all tend to think that sexual abuse happens only with girls, but data is showing that, and I can talk about my experience a little later. And so we said that with 400 million children in this country, we can just imagine the amount of sexual abuse happening with our children. So we said, let's focus on prevention. And we found that working in schools with the children would be most beneficial because A, we get children in a structured environment to talk to, plus we get access to their primary caregivers, adults, as in the form of parents and teachers, and we can make them aware, educate them, and train them as well. So Arpan came up with a school-based prevention and intervention model. We've been running this program for over 13 years now, and we've trained over 130,000 children and over 100,000 parents and teachers so far. What we go and do is, we first begin with training parents and teachers, telling them about what is child sexual abuse, what is the law. So as you might already, all of you might be aware that India has a very good legislation called POCSO, Protection of Children from Sexual Offences, which is in place in our country. So we tell them about the law, what does it cover? We talk to them about how can they be vigilant as adults and be protective for their children, either in a school environment or otherwise at home, in the neighborhood, etc. We also then talk to them about communication skills, how that can lead to early disclosure if they have healthy relationships, open communication channels with children. We then go on to do trainings with children in the classroom. So we work with children right from grade 1 to grade 10. These are 4 to 6 lesson plans of an hour each. With children, we cover basic concepts of personal safety. We help them identify private body parts. Now, in our society, we don't talk about names of private body parts, right? We begin with teaching children eyes, nose, lips, ears when they are young. We will skip the entire genital area and go on to legs and feet. And obviously, children are curious. Why are we not giving names to our genital area? And I think that's where the shame starts to come in. That's where the silence starts to come in because we're not talking about it. So in our lesson plans, we very categorically talk about what are the names of private body parts so that children develop the vocabulary to report any kind of abuse that they might be experiencing. We then talk about touching rules and guidelines age appropriately, that it's never all right for someone to talk, look, or touch your private parts except to keep you clean and healthy. If such a thing happens, say no and get away from that situation. Go and tell a trusted adult and keep telling till you get the help you need. And then we, of course, help children and adolescents also identify who are their trusted adults. And that goes a long way because it helps them rationalize that, especially with young children, like they'll tend to believe, oh, Superman and Doraemon will come and help me. But no, it's not going to be Superman or Spider-Man. You need to look within your vicinity, who will really help you in a real situation. So it's a beautiful rationalization process with children, and they get it. And then the most important concept of it's never your fault. So if you've experienced any kind of sexual abuse, please remember it's never your fault. It's very important that children understand that, because I think that even if children have experienced sexual abuse, at that point itself, the healing process begins. Because we all tend to think that it's the child's fault, right? Even when sometimes if a child discloses to a parent, the parent will say, oh, but why did you go there? Or why didn't you come and tell me earlier about it? So we're trying to all shift the blame on the child. However, we try and reinforce saying that it's never your fault. It's the duty of us adults to protect children, not children themselves. Children can, of course, participate in the safety. And with, of course, adolescents, we talk about internet safety, we talk about healthy and harmful relationships, consent, physical boundaries, so that they are able to make better decisions and better choices for themselves. After the lesson plans, we have individual sessions with every single child. Children otherwise do not disclose about sexual abuse, and this private space gives them that space to talk about any ongoing or past abuse. If they do share that case gets passed on to our counselors. Our counselors step in to start counseling the child or the adolescent, intervene with the family as well, inform them, tell them about the law and what is the legal recourse, if any, that they want to take. Meanwhile, the counseling continues as well with the psychoeducation of parents, which is very important because, of course, parents might also feel shocked and guilty that, oh, I didn't even know that this was happening. And most of the time, children have told us for the first time. And that is the ARPAN trainers and counselors. The counseling continues, and the focus is to reduce any anxiety, shame, guilt, pain, anger, grief that the child might be experiencing. Any trauma that we notice gets processed, and we work towards building resilience in the child, building a safety plan so that there's no any further re-victimization, and building a safety plan with the family as well. We end the program with a training with the parents and teachers as well, again giving them skills on how they can be more vigilant and protect children from sexual abuse. This is a holistic model that we've been running for many years now, and we are scaling it pan-India. I'm very glad to show and share impact of our program. We've done a number of evaluations and impact studies which show that it's working. Our first external audit that was done by International Market Research Bureau said that 90% of the children who had faced an unsafe situation after ARPAN's personal safety education program sought help from an adult immediately. We also had done a qualitative study, and we interviewed 33 children in a group of 5 schools who had adopted ARPAN's program, of which 9 said they had faced an unsafe situation, and all 9 demonstrated assertive and help-seeking behavior. So I'm really glad to share that the program is impactful and there is a solution that is working very, very well. We are hoping to continue to do this work and keep on protecting millions of children from sexual abuse. Thank you. Flavia, you're on mute.
Thank you, Pooja, and I'm sure you have much more to share. But you have given us a very good gist of your work, and I'm sure everybody has appreciated this. Now we have the last speaker in this panel, Professor Darrell Higgins, and he will talk further, he will address further dimensions of sexual abuse and child protection.
Thank you, and it's a great pleasure to be with you all today. I'm going to be talking a little bit, first of all, about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs for short. And they provide some useful examples of what we mean by trying to create conditions across society for a thriving and equitable future for our sons and daughters, and some of the broader principles for the framework for doing this, and working on things like poverty reduction, and violence prevention that we've been talking about already. And we know that families and children are important actors in meeting the SDGs and creating that future and creating those equitable environments. But I also want to explore some of the risks within families, and the previous speakers have already talked about that. And therefore the role of evidence-based parenting supports in helping families to create that thriving, equitable future for their children by raising them in a way that's free from violence and protects them from harm, both within the family and outside. And so I'm going to be talking finally a little bit about child-safe organisations and what kind of policies and practices can be put in place by youth-serving organisations, whether they be churches, schools, sports clubs, youth development organisations, etc. But to begin with, and I'm not going to go into detail around the data around the issue of violence against children, but I think it's quite obvious that we know that boys and girls don't necessarily share that burden equitably. And we know that in many different types of violence that women and girls face those issues to a higher degree. Certainly in issues like child marriage, we see that the global burden, if you like, falling more heavily on girls. In terms of school-based, school-related gender-based violence, we know that it's an obstacle to the education of girls, and that girls are more likely to experience psychological bullying and to be made fun of because of how their face or their body looks compared to boys. Looking at prevalence studies across the world, and there's been a comparison study by Moody and colleagues in 2018 that looks at prevalence rates in different parts of the world. And what they found was that in many different locations, that the rate for girls was generally higher than it was for boys. However, the rates for physical abuse were generally higher for boys than for girls. The rates for emotional abuse were nearly double for girls compared to boys. And rates for neglect, again, were slightly different in different locations, but were much more equitable. But particularly were higher for girls in North America. So how do we address this? Well, we see that the Sustainable Development Goal 16 is about ending violence. So ending abuse, exploitation, trafficking, and all forms of violence against children. And we know that from research that my colleagues and I have been doing, that one of the most effective ways to develop systems that support the kind of changes that we want to bring about in families and more broadly in communities involves what we call a public health approach to addressing those things that contribute to abuse and neglect. So the risk factors, either changing the risk factors or ameliorating them. So when we're talking about gender, we're not talking about changing people's gender, we're talking about changing the things that go along with that, such as those poor attitudes to the role of girls and women and the opportunities and resources that are afforded to them. How do we create those conditions of safety, though, for girls and boys to have an equal chance of growing up in a safe and supportive family and community? We know that parents are critical to that, and parenting in the 21st century is not getting any easier. And so while we have Dr. Google to look up information, we also know that there are still new parenting challenges, even in helping our digital natives to thrive. And of course, we can think about what is the role of parents in talking about online safety and in understanding grooming that might be happening online as well as in the real world in a range of different settings. We know that not only do parents have to be equipped and feel comfortable about those things that Pooja was referencing before in terms of teaching children the language around their body parts so that they can be protected and have positive conversations around that. We also know that children are increasingly being exposed to pornography and sexualized images. And so that is changing, if you like, the nature of the conversations. And we need to be equipping parents to the realities of children's exposure to these kind of materials and helping them to engage with their children about this material, and particularly to be addressing the risks that children, and particularly girls, face in relation to harmful behaviour from peers. So that could be siblings, could be extended family like cousins, it could be their classmates or other young people in youth-serving organisations. But clearly, given the concentration of violence in the home, we know that one of the big risks is the issue of poor parenting practices. And that could be through lack of supervision or poor knowledge of or poor ability to implement non-violent positive parenting practices. And so that means we need to have parenting skills training as one of those really important groups of interventions that we can provide in order to address the risks that children face. So some of the actions that we need to be taking here is really to recognise that as a community, we have to value parenting and caregiving. And I love the fact that Linda referenced at the beginning the importance of norms. So changing the norms around parenting and caregiving and seeing it as a valuable and important task that we actually want to equip and support, whether it be with money to pay carers better, or access to training and supports and evidence-based programs to support parents in the delivery of their improved capacity to reduce child behaviour problems and to prevent harm to their children. I want to turn now to the second issue of gender and organisational safety or risks. And it's interesting when we compare it to children in the home, this is where the balance shifts and boys actually tend to be at greater risk in many different youth-serving organisations. And that's perhaps because of the types of organisations. Sometimes it's in faith-based settings, sometimes it's in sporting organisations where there might be more males involved in the kind of leadership or coaching or caregiving roles. And so we know that the gender vulnerability is different in different contexts. And so how do we address the issue of the risk of child sexual abuse, as well as what Pooja was saying in terms of equipping children with knowledge and skills? We also have to be addressing the environment to create conditions of safety. And what does that mean? It means
can you just wrap up, please, your arguments?
Pardon?
Can you wrap up your arguments?
Yes, thank you. So creating safe environments, so addressing those risks in a systematic way so that it's less likely that an adult or another young person has the opportunity to engage in harmful behaviour. And so that means we have to have clear policies and practices supported by the organisation, the broader community, and by the family. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very good presentation. And it broadens the debate into international levels and policy changes by using your indicators of the SDG. And I think that's a very important factor here. Now it's open to discussions, debates. People can ask questions to the speaker. Please put your questions in the chat box so they can be addressed. But let me first ask Daryl a few questions here. Why is gender a risk factor for safety in both families and organizations? Your response must be brief, please.
Yeah, I think gender is a risk factor because of the socialisation practices that we have, particularly for females in informal settings, in families. And we talked before about how they're socialised into the role of caregiving and also of compliance and of following the authority of males and of adults, which means it's easier for a father or an extended family member who's male to get away with inappropriate behaviour, to engage in grooming and to have threats of silence. And in other organisations, I think that the absence of sexuality education means that it's more likely that people won't have an understanding of what it is that they should be entitled to and how it is that they can understand when there is a concerning situation.
Thank you. My next question is to Vibhuti, Professor Vibhuti. Pre-birth elimination of girls have escalated during the pandemic period. What has been your response to this deplorable situation? Unmute Vibhuti.
Because PCPNDT Act was freezed during last 18 months, a lot of illegal abortions took place and there was no monitoring. The appropriate authority, Vigilance Committee, all of them were not functioning. And that's why whatever the women's groups and the health groups have found out is that a lot of such sex-selective abortions have taken place. Yesterday, you must have read a very scandalous thing where a big well with female fetuses has been found in UP. So that this kind of information have come. In fact, the whole data gathering system itself has collapsed because of the pandemic. And I think that is the major reason. Only the women's groups and the health organizations, People's Health Assembly or the reproductive women's group working on the reproductive health issues, they are now, they are the only one who have raised voice. But most important learning of these things that you can't just say that corona is the only health emergency. Reproductive health of women is also very important emergency, and it is also directly linked to domestic violence, because this is the situation where women can't seek help of anybody. A pregnant woman, if she is forced by her in-laws or husband, relatives to go for sex selective test, in normal times she would lodge complaint, she would take help of a network place, or she would take help of here the complete social isolation and the sheer helplessness under which she had to undergo this kind of and there are so many unsafe abortions have also taken place because abortion services were also freezed. So a lot of the backdoor abortions have taken place, which have taken heavy toll of women. We don't even know how many mortalities of women have taken place. No, it's a very, very deplorable situation. And UNFPA is the conscience keeper. UNFPA is raising this issue again and again.
Thank you so much. My next question is to Pooja. How do you plan to scale the personal safety education program?
Great question, Flavia. Thank you. Yes, our aspiration is to take this to every child in the country. So we're working very closely with the government at the state and national level. I'm very pleased to share that the personal safety education curriculum has now been integrated under the School Health and Wellness Program under the Ayushman Bharat initiative. It's a joint initiative by the Ministry of Education and Ministry of Health. It's got rolled out and we've trained all the state resource group persons on it. It's an 11-module life skill program and has got rolled out in all the states. So I'm hoping that that curriculum will reach all the millions of children in government schools over the next couple of years. The other thing that we're doing is, because India works in a very federal manner, just making sure that it gets integrated at the national level is not enough. And so we are working at this with the states also independently. So at the Maharashtra level, the curriculum has got integrated and we've trained 120,000 teachers pan Maharashtra. We're now doing refreshers with government teachers in Maharashtra in various districts. And we've trained teachers in Bihar and Delhi. There's parallel efforts going on, and we're hoping to train all the lakhs of teachers pan-India so that all the children get personal safety education over the next 2 years. Thank you.
And how do you assess the impact of your program?
So we are continuously doing evaluations, Flavia. Every 2 years, we go in and do a impact study with the teachers and the children whom we've trained. So the teachers whom we've trained and then how they've taken personal safety education forward with the children. And we try and assess retention in children. And the second thing is we try and assess that in an unsafe situation, did the child use the knowledge and the skills that the child was taught? Because for us, that is success. Only then is prevention happening if the child's been able to recognize an unsafe situation and get away from there. So I know we've set very high standards of impact, but we're continuously trying to monitor that and assess it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think that's very important. At least India is concerned. You have a program that's not limited to urban areas, but pans out to various rural areas as well. And I'm glad you have impact assessment built within that. The next question is to Darren. What are the solutions and strategies for prevention?
Yeah, look, it's a very big question, and they're slightly different ones, I think, for addressing child sexual abuse than they are for more broadly addressing prevention of other forms of child maltreatment, particularly within families. So to start with the family issue, I think I said before in my presentation that the big solution there is about equipping and supporting parents and other caregivers with evidence-based programs that teach those kind of positive parenting skills. In terms of prevention of child sexual abuse, both within families and more broadly into the community, it really goes back to understanding and trying to unpack and change some of the drivers of inequality in relation to sex, power, and relationships. And so being able to address, if you like, the norms within organisations that make it okay for males to cross boundaries, whether that be a boundary between an adult and a child, or even for allowing young men, young boys, to be misusing, if you like, the kind of societal norms, if you like, to get away with inappropriate behaviour. And we know that, you know, whether it be in schools, in so many different youth-serving organisations and contexts, that girls are subject to, you know, harassment, whether it be, you know, unwanted sexualised images that they are shown, unwanted requests, etc. And until we actually address that and have conversations about it, we're not going to be able to turn things around. So we need to have conversations about sex, about puberty, about human development. So, you know, all the stuff that Pooja was talking about before in terms of, you know, giving names to body parts is a really basic thing. We also have to help the adults in the room, though, feel comfortable about that. Parents need to feel okay about it and to understand that they have to overcome the shame that they might feel from their own upbringings and the lack of kind of societal acceptance, if you like, of conversations about human development and sexuality. But most importantly, it's about addressing the situational risks, because we know, particularly from child sexual abuse in organisations, that the grooming goes on and the stepping over the boundary and the engaging in child sexual abuse usually happens where there's poor supervision and where the opportunity arises for someone to take that first step. And so by having organisations, and particularly the leaders, you know, whether it be schools, whether it be sports clubs, coaches, etc., putting this out in the open, having it part of their team meetings, having conversations with their staff that they are supporting and asking questions, and making sure that those organisations make it okay for children to speak up when they do feel unsure. So not just wait until abuse has actually happened, but just say, I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable with teacher X, or, you know, when my fellow classmate, you know, shows me this picture on his iPhone, you know, that makes me feel uncomfortable. And rather than just say, oh, don't be silly, or, you know, or why don't you run away to the other side of the playground, we need to have adults who respond and who understand that that's not okay. And it's their role to create those safe conditions for children.
Thank you. Thank you, Darren. Now, Vibhuti, my next question is for you. Sex-selective abortions are happening for the last 50 years by abusing new reproductive technologies. What are efforts made by the state and non-state actors? In fact, as we got newer laws and newer policies and programs, you can see that the sex-selective abortions are increasing. And as you pointed out, during pandemic, it has been pathetic that the way the sex-selective abortions have been carried out, because all the avenues to file complaints, etc. So now, how do you see this issue going forward? Because for 50 years, we're saying the same thing, according to me.
Yeah, that now see earlier the politicians and authorities, they used to think that less number of women means less reproduction. So they used to they used to say that it is the best population control measure, no? That in the anticipation of son, Indian women go on producing daughters. That was the argument. That can be used. Now, the latest census, if you see, 20 states are below stabilization. The latest 21 census is showing that only 2 states, UP and Bihar, has TFR, total fertility rate of 3. Others are below. India has reached population stabilization. That is, couples are reproducing only 2 bases. So now at least the officials' attitude towards this has to change. Another thing is that what China has experienced. China imposed one-child norm in 1978. And now 25 lakhs Chinese don't have a bride. So because there are only boys there, and China is now selectively allowing people, if they can economically afford, they can have 2 children or 3. So I think that situation should not happen. So even among the policymakers, researchers, academicians, and politicians, the attitude is now softening on this issue, because we have attained low birth rate, but at the cost of our daughters. People have they have accepted less contraceptive measures, and they have accepted population control policy, but by eliminating daughters. So I think this is a very important. So that is one thing. Second one is, instead of talking about Beti Bachao, Beti is the most helpless person. First of all, change the mindset of people. So through textbooks, through media, through positive portrayal of women and girls, and also incentivizing girls, make all the education and all the facilities for Indian girls free of charge. 18 states have now come up with the conditional cash transfer. If a daughter is born and you don't kill her, then the state opens an account with 10,000 rupees. If you give her inoculation, another 10,000. If you send her to school, another 10,000. By the time she's 21, she gets 1 lakh rupees in hand. So I think that cradle baby scheme in Tamil Nadu, because Tamil Nadu was the first one to take cognizance of the mass scale female infanticide as well as sex selective abortion, and they came up with Madam Jayalalitha, she came up with the cradle baby scheme. So state taking responsibility, I think that itself gives a good message that we care for our daughters, no? So that is very important.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I have one more question to Darren. It's a very important question according to me. What are the relative merits of requiring compliance changes, example, to achieve gender equity, versus striving for deeper cultural change in families, institutions, and broader societies?
Yeah, thank you. Look, it's such an important question, because in all countries like Australia, we actually have quite strong laws and compliance requirements for many, many youth-serving organisations. One of the longest standing ones relates to what we call working with children checks. So for any adult to work in a youth-serving organisation, they have to have undergone this check. And it's really to see if they have a criminal past that makes them unsuitable for children. And so organisations are very good at following that. They don't employ a teacher, or they don't employ an adult in a youth-serving role if they haven't got a working with children check. That's what I call compliance. We're very good at that. But what we're not so good about is actually addressing the underlying cultural issues within the organisation, to really have child-centred processes, to be empowering children, so that we don't just wait until something bad happens and then we expect them to speak up about that, when we've never actually empowered them and asked them to speak up about some of the smaller things, some of the harassment that they might be having that's not about sexual abuse, but it might be about who's using their pencil case, or it might be around where they're allowed to eat their lunch or something like that, and they're feeling uncomfortable, they're feeling a little bit not great, but they don't feel as though their views matter to anybody, and so they don't speak up. And what my research that my team has been conducting shows that when you don't actually give children a voice and you don't empower them about some of those smaller things, how on earth do we expect them to speak up about something as horrendous as child sexual abuse, when they know that it's going to cause problems for an adult, Adults are going to get embarrassed. They're not really wanting to hear the answer. We're sending these mixed messages. And so that cultural issue is the really important one. And going back to the first point that I made, not about child sexual abuse within organisations, but about parenting more generally, again, it's the same cultural issue around the issue of gender equity and addressing the norms within families and more broadly within organisations. So we can't just have a law that says don't smack, or a law that says, value girls and boys equally. If we're not actually addressing the attitudes and the social norms that have actually led to that poor, unsafe behaviour in the first place. So I put all of my money in the culture change side of things, not the compliance side of things. Mm.
Thank you, Darren. Actually, Darren's presentation dovetails perfectly into what Pooja has said and Pooja's presentation. And Vibhuti's presentation, in fact, goes to the root of neglect of the girl child and elimination of girl child before she's born. So here also, I feel what you said just now links very closely to Vibhuti's presentation, that we have laws in place, but they're not working. They're not giving us the results that we require at this moment. And that's because our cultural attitudes toward girl child has not changed. A large number of girls are not in school. A large number of girls are married very early in life because of the threat of rape and sexual abuse that's happening within the home, in the vicinity, in the community. And marriage is seen as an only alternative. And marriage is expensive, and we don't want to spend that kind of money on our daughters. So the logic generally among the poor, among the rich, among the middle class, everybody, that we'll have families only of boys. And what Vibhuti has just said, what is happening in China, we also have states like Rajasthan where the number of girls is so less, much lesser than the national average. And here, the boys are not getting brides, so the brides have to be imported into these states. And this is a pathetic situation that we are going through. And I also agree that we need to change culture. We need to change mindset. We need to get over this male preference attitude that are prevalent in our society. We will now take questions from the participants from the chat box. Lata, somebody will read out the questions.
Yeah.
Lata?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Anna will read out the question.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So this is a question from Krishita Uri. My question is for Dr. Pooja. Was there any sort of resistance from the parents when the children were being taught about their genitals at a young age, as it is a big taboo?
Great question. Initially, yes, we were met with resistance. That was about 13, 14 years ago when we weren't talking as openly about such issues. And so parents were really worried that, oh, you're going to talk to my children about this. And what if the children come and talk to us about this at home? How are we going to respond? Because we don't know what to say. And then, you know what? Funnily, they were also worried that, you know, what if I have some guests over and in front of those guests, if children say penis, vagina, what am I going to do? And so I think it was, it's funny, but it's also understandable because those parents have also not been taught at their young age. They've all grown up with that same stigma. So it's understandable that they have that in their minds. And then how can we, you know, sort of address this? So in our parents' sessions, we talk to them that, look, if your children come and talk to you and say, today we learned this in school, respond in a very assertive manner and say, great, and appreciate them that I'm so glad that you learned this in school. And if something like this happens, you come and tell mommy and papa about it, and we'll help you. So building those communication channels by telling children that we are very happy if you come and talk to us about these things becomes a much more positive way of getting children to not feel shameful about such things. In some schools, yes, we couldn't do the program. That is a reality. They were really, really shy of taking this topic up. But in most other schools, we've been able to run the program successfully, and not once, but even our step-up programs, where we go back after every two to 3 years to reinforce the messages age appropriately. It's been going on well. And in the last 7-8 years, I actually find no resistance. In fact, the parents themselves explain to the other parents saying that, no, this is really important for our children. We must do this program. So rather than us having to give the rationalization, we now have parents who've become advocates of the program. So it's wonderful.
I just want to comment here, Pooja, that whenever there's a rape in our vicinity, hear about, and then I asked my domestic helpers that, do you know about this? Are you aware? Are your children aware? Are your girls aware? And they always come back and say, my children have learned good touch and bad touch. So we are aware, my children are aware. So I feel really happy that it's reaching out even to the lower strata. And there are some in municipal schools, some in private schools. And it's gone to all of them. And she said, we all know what is a good touch and bad touch. And we discuss with our children. The elder ones come and discuss with the younger ones. And that's amazing that is filtered down to that extent. Next question, you have?
Yes, ma'am. So this question is from Preeti Sharma, and it is again to Pooja, ma'am. So the question says, my question
Pooja,
to Pooja, ma'am. What is your
arousing a
opinion?
lot of discussion on your presentation. Everybody wants, I see a lot of questions to you.
Sorry,
what is your opinion on IPC 498A, which is a gender-biased law, and children are becoming victims on such domestic violence laws?
Maybe Flavia is more well suited.
Flavia, you answer
question than me. I am happy to talk more about POCSO, but Flavia is an expert on both 498A POCSO as well. Flavia, do you want to answer that?
What's the question? I didn't hear it properly. The intricacies of the question. Yeah, I know. I understood. What's the question? Yeah. What's the question?
Children suffer because of that.
Pardon?
Children suffer as a result of 498A. The quarrel.
I think children suffer when there is domestic violence. Children go through a lot of emotional stress when there is domestic violence. It is not that 498A is creating the problem.
I agree.
Correct.
Flavia, you've gone mute.
Correct.
Yeah, I just want to say that it's not 498A. Firstly, a child being raised in a family where there's so much of domestic violence impact the child enormously. So it's better to be a single parent and bring up our children in a safe and emotionally stable environment than being in a joint family and exposing your children to this violence and abuse that takes place in the family. Many abusive families where the wife is abused, you will also find the child is abused. There's also sexual violence that is happening in these families. And the woman doesn't have the agency to address it or report it. And only when a child is pregnant, these issues come to light. And that's very, very pathetic. So I'm not saying that 498 creates the problem. It is the problem already is there at a very high rate of domestic violence that prevails. Physical, verbal, emotional, sexual, all of it is there in our families. 498A is a way to address this. And in 1983, this law came. But as soon as the law came, there was, in fact, a protest saying that women are misusing, women are misusing. At one level, we all the time we say we need laws to address this issue. The minute the law comes and women start using, whether it is POCSO, whether it is any of these things, domestic violence, cruelty to wives, all of this, you say women are misusing. So I think as responsible citizens, we need to look at statistics. We need to look at exactly what is happening. I had done a study of 498A in all the police stations in Mumbai, and the average is about 3 cases in each police station. That means a whole year, you have only 3 cases of 498A, and yet what we hear in the media all the time is that by our judiciary, by the lawyers, everywhere, that 498A is being misused, and it's a draconian law, it is a terrorist law, and such horrible comments are made by our judiciary. We just have this recent case where a Catholic bishop was accused of raping a nun for several times, 13 times. and yet the judiciary acquitted that person. And this is the mindset of our judiciary. This is the mindset of our people in general. This is the mindset of our police. And that is why whenever women are being empowered through a certain legislation, immediately comes the counter attack, including under POCSO. Now we are hearing that POCSO is being misused. This is the latest trend now. And while we know that how much abuse takes place within the families and in society. Thank you, Pooja, for letting me answer this.
No, you're the most experienced person on this panel, on this, Flavia. It's all yours. I just want to reiterate what you said, that the laws are not problematic at all. So we should stop looking at laws as being problematic. It's really, yes, people do sometimes misuse it, but that's not the purpose of the law. The purpose of the law is to protect.
Even the traffic rules are misused.
Exactly. Even traffic rules are misused.
Are not followed. We don't say that remove them.
Exactly. Every law is misused. Tax law is misused. Every other law is misused. Family laws are misused. The number of bigamous cases among Hindus, though the monogamy law prevails from 1955. So nobody says Hindu law is being misused because men are marrying more than one wife, or any as traffic rules are misused, tax laws are misused. Everywhere is misused. We only single out something that empowers women. And that, according to me, stems from a patriarchal
mindset. Absolutely. Hang on.
Yeah. There are questions in the chat box also. I
yes,
think all are for Pooja only. Yeah.
Yes.
Talk about counseling victimized children. How successful are you when dealing with parents who are burdened with guilt post-sexual abuse incident related to their own child? These especially after parents have meticulously tried to safeguard their children.
Yes, that's a great question. And we've come across many parents who feel so guilty about what has happened, but which is why there's counseling needed for those parents as well. And therefore we spend time doing sessions with them as well, because it's very important to understand, no matter how much safeguarding you do, you cannot be with the child 24 hours trying to protect the child, hold the child in your arms. It's just not possible. But what we can all do as parents is empower our children to recognize unsafe situations, touches, and come and tell us about it. And as parents, we can focus on responding appropriately and helping our child and believing our child. Believe you me, just believing our children goes a long way in helping the child. And I think as parents, as much as we feel bad, I think it's important to focus on what can we do from hence on, and I urge all the parents to say, tell them is that what has happened. What you can focus on is how does it not happen again? What is the safety net that you can create for your child? How can you be more empowered and more knowledgeable? If the abuse has happened within your home, what steps can you take to protect your child within the home? If you want to take the legal recourse, what are your options? What will it lead to? Take those choices. Most importantly, do what you think is going to be best for your child. And that should just be the focus. Not worry so much about being able to protect your child, because it could be just impossible to be able to do that at all times. And that, I think, should be the focus. And how can you help your child heal so that the child doesn't have to live with the trauma of abuse for their entire life? Because definitely sexual abuse or any form of severe abuse can create lifelong trauma. And I think it's very important to focus on the healing aspect so that the child is able to overcome that trauma and live a happy, healthy life.
Pooja, I have a question to you. What were the challenges posed to your work to the enactment of the POCSO Act, where the minute you come to know about the abuse, you are mandated to report? And as per Section 21 of the POCSO Act, non-reporting is a crime punishable with 1 year of imprisonment. How has this impacted your work in schools? I remember you raising a lot of issues regarding this at the initial stage.
Yeah, initially there was a lot of hesitation by schools. They weren't willing to come and allow us to come and do the program because they didn't want to get into the whole legal aspect of reporting, etc. There was a lot of overwhelming feeling. Parents didn't want to do it. Parents didn't really understand it. And it posed a lot of issues because services were not being given. So prevention services stopped. Doctors were hesitant to take on cases because as medical practitioners, they would be mandated to report. That entire environment just changed into that of fear. And we then, after the initial, fear that came about, we just helped everybody sort of say that, look, you know what, we need to continue to do this program. Our services shouldn't stop. Helping the child shouldn't stop. If a child is facing ongoing abuse, the most important thing is to stop the abuse. You have options of the law. You can even write to the child welfare committee member if you wish to. You can go to a police station if you wish to. There are options. And as a parent, you can take the prerogative of what you want to do. Though, yes, there is mandatory reporting, people are hesitant. Yet we found that, providing services is way more critical than anything else. And I think schools have understood that, parents have understood that, and we've gone ahead and continued our program. But yes, the initial hurdle was a lot.
Daryl, I'm very
There was
happy.
one question.
Yeah.
Very happy in your program. You have made it very integral to focus on girls and women and how culturally it needs to be impacted, and that's the only way to address it. And I think the same applies to Vibhuti also, that the cultural transformation, I think we are lagging behind. It is the same with dowry. We had this stringent dowry laws in 1983, 1986. We had 3004B, where if a girl dies within 7 years of marriage, then there is a presumption that violence was done. She was done to death by her in-laws, etc. We had all this, but a mindset is not changed. Denial of property rights to women has not changed, and we continue to exchange huge amount of dowry in lieu of the property rights of women. And how do we bring about these changes culturally? How do we bring about these changes? Because law alone cannot work. We need to work much more at the grassroots.
That is the work which even Savitribai Phule and all started way back in 1848, and still we have a long way to go. Recently, some of the district magistrates only sent circular in Rajasthan that you put a condition before at the time of Raksha Bandhan that only after your sisters they give up their rights to property, then only allow them to tie Rakhi. So imagine people holding official position, they are abusing their power to deprive women of the property rights. Yesterday there is an article about Syrian Christian women. So many of them, they are now saying they are not getting property right. Now Mary Roy won the case some 30 years back, and even after that, that is happening. So I think the overall political atmosphere of very much, the sectarian ideology that they are facing, I think it also impacts women, and I think it is globally it is happening. What we are seeing in Afghanistan, women being not even allowed to go to school or not educate or not to enter public life. No, so I think we have to continue the kind of robust women's movement we had during 80s and 90s. I think we need to continue that kind of a tempo and take the message, because our generation is getting old. So I think the new generation has to be mentored by programs like this.
That is why we have Pooja on this panel.
Yeah. So
yeah, I have a question here to Pooja, that recently one Roman Catholic priest was convicted for sodomizing a young boy of 13 years. Now, in this context, I feel this education in school is very, very important. We should not wait till such kind of abuse of authority takes place. And whether it's any community, whether it's a Christian community, Muslim community, Hindu community, in every community, the community leaders and religious leaders have such power over their schools and children in their school. And we see that that in these schools, how important the program is. But I don't know whether people in authority will recognize this, will allow this to happen. And what's been your experience in Catholic schools where the priests are in charge? Pooja, this question to you.
I'm sorry, I had an internet issue, so I dropped off. Can you
Yeah,
repeat the question?
recently a priest was convicted for sodomizing a 13-year-old boy, and he was a parish priest in Govandi, and finally conviction has come about. But my question is that where parish priests or any religious heads for that matter are in charge of the school and have so much access to the children in that school, do they allow your program to come there? Do they allow a free atmosphere where children can live without fear and such abuse can be brought to light? Is there like a change of attitude that's happening? Because I'm sure many of your schools are Roman Catholic aided schools with large number of children studying.
Yeah, absolutely. In a lot of Catholic schools, the program has been welcome. I can't say that we've been able to work in all of the ones that we approached. Similarly, where it is even in conservative Islamic schools, we've had issues. And I can't say it's been smooth. It's been a bit tricky, but we've done everything to rationalize, explain why this is important. We've also in some cases involved the religious leaders so that they can influence parents about why this is important, because I think the faith leaders need to be a part of this movement, because they are extremely influential people, and so we tend to involve them in taking this forward. But yes, wherever the where the influencer is the abuser, that becomes very tricky. People are very hesitant to say anything or do anything, and that becomes very difficult to deal with. We've not had any case related to that, but I have heard from others about it. Just to respond to the earlier thing that you had said, Flavia, about our focus being on girls and women, I just wanted to add that our focus is equally on both boys and girls. And I want to place this in front of everybody that our boys need as much attention as our girls as well. Very often we look at boys as either the protector or the perpetrator, but not as a victim. In Arpan's work also, we have found that boys are being extremely sexually bullied. We find more sexual assault happening with girls, but we find extreme sexual bullying happening with boys. And because we've created gender biases, stereotypes around boys need to be macho, boys can't cry like girls, boys need to be strong, boys don't land up seeking help. And then they suffer in silence, which is really, really sad. And I think we need to create an environment where we say that it's okay for boys to talk about these things. It's okay for boys to seek help. It's okay for boys to cry. It's okay for boys to communicate and have the right to get this help, right? I mean, these rights for children are for children. Children are gender neutral human beings. So whether it's boys, girls, LGBTQAI+, any gender, I think we should look at all of them as equal. And when it comes to child rights, make sure that nobody's rights are violated.
And Darren, would you like to add something to this issue in your work? How does it pan out?
In relation to gender, I think it's important to address the needs of both girls and boys. And of course, one of the things that I find does kind of come together is the issue of teaching prevention strategies to someone who might be a victim are very similar to the kind of strategies that we would want to teach in order to stop perpetration. So that means we need to have conversations around what are healthy relationships, what is consent, consent in relation to sexuality, but consent more broadly. You know, children of a very young age can be taught about consent. You know, do you want to share your crayons? Do you want to engage with this, this jigsaw puzzle or that jigsaw puzzle, etc. And so to be able to teach, not wait until we get to talking about human relationships and particularly love and attraction and sexuality to start bringing in some of these, more complex kind of concepts. And so I think we can be both preventing someone being at risk of victimization as well as preventing someone engaging in harmful, coercive or abusive behaviours if we actually focus on the positives and change the culture around that. And we know that you can't just start by assuming, one class is going to fix something up. It is actually going to take time. And I think as Pooja has explained, you have to try and influence a range of different actors, so talking to faith leaders, talking to parents, coming back multiple times to schools is actually part of the strategy here. So that we're getting children at different ages, we're getting parents, we're reinforcing messages, I think is the way that we're going to be able to start addressing those kind of cultural norms, coming back again to, to what Linda said at the very beginning of today's discussion.
I have a question to Vibhuti. Do you see a change of attitude among the medical professionals? There is a law that operates that is supposed to be very active on the ground, but it is not. And a lot, this elimination of female fetus is happening only because the doctors sort of promote it. The medical profession is very intrinsically involved in this issue. So that's one portal that we need to address very frontally. And without their cooperation, I don't think we will move forward, because there are so many ways in which, underhand ways in which they do it, because there is a demand. Parents demand, the couples demand, and they say we are only catering to the needs. But stringent laws have been enacted. So how do you see its impact that is happening in the ground? Has it changed anything?
See, now the things have changed over the last 50 years. Earlier, there was no element of criminality. Flavia, when we organized that Larsen and Toubro seminar, people were openly boasting. Doctors were talking like magicians that we are helping women to get sons. No, so that is gone. Like the element of criminality has come. That doing sex-selective abortion is a criminal thing. Several studies by Population International Committee for Research in Women, or abortion study by multicentric abortion study by Ali and Sehat and all of them have shown that because of this awareness about PCPNDT Act since 2002, PNDT Act 1994 and PCPNDT Act 2002, 35% of doctors say they are convinced with the argument that you can't, it is a violence against women. They have started seeing the question of sex-selective abortion not as a question of choice. There has been paradigm shift in thinking. They say it is a violence against women, number one. Number two, those who are neutral, they said we are not bothered about larger argument and anthropological and historical and social and norms and all. But because it is unlawful, we won't do it. We are law abiding, we are white collar people, we are not criminals, we are not bootleggers, we will not do it. We are law abiding. And the third category, which is there, nearly 1/3 of the doctors, we care two hoots about law. We are politically connected or nothing will happen. But now the locus of sex-selective abortions has now shifted into mufossil areas. All the recent scandals, if you see, they are in the extremely interior parts of this, because the ultrasonography machine, it's a tiny little machine, it's a mobile, highly sophisticated 3-dimensional image of fetus you get, which doctors in the tier 2, not even tier 2, tier 3 cities, district places, and tehsil places. These are the places where now it is happening. In the cities, the vigilance is also there. People also know, people in the neighborhood and all, people have become aware about this issue. So the locus is changing. Wherever there are no campaigns, the states where there are no campaigns, these incidences are now increasing. So the awareness has really worked. Awareness campaign and the education, public education has really worked. Maharashtra is the highest number of sting operations. So now in the cities, it doesn't happen. It happens in all the interior places. The last couple of scandals we had were not in Kolhapur, because Kolhapur, the campaign is very strong. They were in Marathwada because there are no such organizations taking up the issue. So people's organization, civil society initiative is very important.
And this is an issue that is affecting the higher classes. We say education will improve, or there will be greater awareness with education, but that's not happened with this issue at all.
It is across the class and cultural
money to spend on abortions and testing.
Only thing, the rates have now gone up because of because it is criminal.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Varsha Deshpande's campaign has also been very successful, where she has used pregnant women as decoys and got the doctors arrested. And that's been quite successful campaign that she.
Yeah, they use code language. All of them use code language. And the person who does the sex selection doesn't do abortion. The abortion is done by totally.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. They have been very.
Yeah. Actually, Vibhuti and myself in 1983 went to Hutchinson Hospital, and there we interviewed doctors, and they were like boasting about it. Yeah, they were boasting about it that we do this, like a totally vegetarian hospital. They don't even give eggs, but they had no.
Onion potato is not allowed, but they allow, but they do sex.
Jain hospital, yeah.
We had a picketing in 1986,
and we did a paper at that time.
And we had a picketing also in front of that hospital. We had a picketing. That only made the issue national because it was very widely covered, that picketing of by 15-20 of us. Media gave massive coverage.
Yeah. Yeah. Tata, how much time does a
5
session
minutes.
have, and are there more questions?
Yeah, ma'am. Another
chat box.
Yeah, another 3 minutes, ma'am. You have another 3 minutes.
We'll sum up.
Yeah.
Questions on the chat box.
All are covered. All
there are about 4 more questions on the chat box. Should I quickly answer them?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Just so that people don't feel like the questions weren't answered.
True.
Very quickly, the abuse for child, if it's happened in the family and she's reluctant to share with her mother, having a conversation with her is what is going to be most helpful, because helping her understand that the abuse needs to stop, and adults are in the best place to help that abuse stop. And therefore, if she confides in the mother, or if not the mother, any helpful adult in the family or relatives who can help her would be the most important step that one can take. Talking to her about personal safety education, letting her know that these are her rights, what are the options that she has, I think will also empower her to make an informed choice. So I do think that we must empower her with information and help her seek help from somebody who will help her. That is what I would say for that, by the question by Bindu. Ma'am, Geeta has asked about our experience with municipal schools. Well, initially it was a bit tricky with municipal schools, but I must say that we've had largely a good experience with the municipal schools, parents, principals. Once we get permission from the education director, we approach the schools and go run the program in the schools. In fact, some teachers have been actually very motivated with the fact that we've come and done this program. They tend to learn, they tend to also use our teaching techniques. I remember this one story where a teacher said that, let me see, how can you take a class without hitting these children? These children are very naughty. And the urban trainer took that challenge and held the class without having to not forget hitting the child, but not even having to raise the voice. And I think that's been great for teachers to see that you can actually run a classroom without having to use corporal punishment, or for that matter, any kind of violence. So the experience has been, I would say, overall has been good. On the next question about children who are special and experiencing sexual abuse, that's very tricky and needs to be addressed. We have trained teachers who work in special ed schools, and I think the teachers and the parents need to be empowered first, so that, because they know how to communicate with these children. And once they are empowered and trained, the children are in a better position to be able to communicate of what's going on. And then the parents, teachers need to make sure that that doesn't happen again. And that what can that child do to talk about it if it ever happens again. So I think over here with the special children, empowering the adults around that child is more critical than anything else, is what I would say.
Yes, I just add to that too, that I think that it's important to address the situation and understand what the risks are. And some of the risks might be about an adult spending time alone, giving care without the supervision of other adults or other children who might be able to observe and witness. It could be during transport, it could be during toileting or those kind of private activities, changing clothes, etc., showering. which is more likely to happen when you have a child with a disability compared to other, kind of schools or youth serving contexts. So I think understanding what are the situations where risks might be higher and making sure that adults and leaders are having conversations about that and are also asking children, are they feeling safe? Do they feel okay? And of course, that's going to be harder, particularly for children who might have a language disability and might have difficulty talking about it. But to be able to do it in a developmentally appropriate way will actually drive a culture of safety and give children the sense that their rights are being respected despite the fact that they have special needs or a disability.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Carol.
Carol.
We will, at this point, close the session for questions, and we'll just wrap up the discussion. I think this entire panel has gone extremely well, and issues which were diverse have got linked together and created a broader framework of rights of children, children before birth, which was Vibhuti's presentation, and children, infants, adolescents, those with special needs, and the international perspective on this. We have this Indian issue where violence against women and children is a primary concern for us, but Daryl has brought in also the international perspective and other issues linked to SDGs, and given us a framework which is slightly broader, and we've all benefited by that. So thank each of you for your excellent presentation, for timekeeping, and for this discussion, which was very inclusive of all the panelists. And of course, Pooja was the highest, where a lot of concerns were raised by our participants because it's a very live issue, sex education, good touch, bad touch in schools, in municipal schools, etc. But Vibhuti's issue also has been around for a long time, but has not been addressed as yet. And that perspective in this has contributed and enriched this entire discussion. So it's been a very good panel, and participants by questions by our participants have been very relevant and very engaging. So I thank all of you for this very, very lively session. I think and nobody fell asleep during this session, though it was at a very inopportune moment of post-lunch here in India. But I think you all managed to keep everybody awake. And also issues like domestic violence at home that got linked to this general panel, where I think elimination of the sex-selective abortions also a part of the domestic violence issue. And what Daryl and Pooja has said is also clearly issues of the family that is happening. And I'm very happy that all these got linked together. So with these comments, I will end this session and thank the organizers for having this very, very engaging panel together, where each person was so lucid, but also together they kept to the timing that was allotted to them, which made my task really easy. Thank each of you. And we move on from here to the next session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Flavia, ma'am. Thank you so much. And this panel has been a fantastic panel, and that is a fantastic beginning of the conference. Thank you so much to every panelist, Professor Vibhuti Patel, Professor Daryl Higgins, Pooja Taparia, and our moderator, who has done a fantastic, phenomenal job, Advocate Flavia Agnes. Please accept our sincere appreciation for a stimulating panel discussion. Your inputs are especially helpful to those who are in the field of research, social work, education, etc. Thank you once again for sparing valuable time from your busy schedule. We look forward to hearing from you again soon. Thank you so much. Over to Father.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Conrad.
Thank you, Professor.
The Centre for Safeguarding and Human Formation is located at Dept College, Pune. Dept College offers a wonderful location to have such a centre. The centre offers walk-in services for counselling. It also offers residential services if people would like to stay for a longer period of time. The centre's prime focus is working with children, working with vulnerable adults, and it does a lot of research. It serves as a resource centre, and it is also a place for renewal. This centre comes under the aegis of the Jesuit Conference of South Asia. It is a beautiful place where people can come and renew themselves, do research, and source for resource.
Yeah, over to Sister Patricia.
Thank you. Patriarchy's chief institution is the family. It is both a mirror of and a connection with the larger society. A patriarchal unit within a patriarchal whole. Quoting Kate Middleton. Our next panel discussion for this day is Dismantling Patriarchy, Masculinity and Misogyny, focusing on children and senior citizens. For our panel discussion, we have the following esteemed members. We have Anupama Datta, who has a MPhil from Jawaharlal Nehru University. For the last 20 years, she has been with HelpAge India in the Policy, Research and Advocacy Department. She is also the editor of HelpAge India Research and Development Journal. She has published 20 articles on aging in various books and journals. On our panel, we also have Mr. Shailesh Mishra, who is a social entrepreneur and mentor. He is the founder of Silver Innings Group, a community dedicated to senior citizens in India. He has won several awards. His vision for an elder-friendly world has garnered support from individuals and organizations across age in society. Shailesh Mishra and his team of committed souls endeavor to reach out to seniors in as many ways as possible. On our panel, we also have Dr. Vahida Nainar, who is an independent researcher working on issues of women and human rights, gender crimes, impunity, reparation, international law and justice, and in the capacity of researcher, coordinator, consultant, trainer, resource person, facilitator and jury member in India and internationally. For our panel discussion this evening, we have our moderator, Ms. Geeta Balakrishnan, who is the retired principal of the College of Social Work, Nirmala Niketan, Mumbai. She is engaged in social work education and practice for more than 23 years. As former director of the research unit of the college, she has directed several research studies on socio-economic and health aspects pertaining to vulnerable groups and issues such as tribal communities, religious minorities, children, disability, aging population, sex workers, etc. Currently, she is the managing committee member and former chairperson of Family Service Centre, Mumbai. Over to you, ma'am Geeta.
Thank you, Sister Patricia. I'm really looking forward to this conference, international conference. It's really started with a bang with Ms. Flavia and Vibhuti Patel and Pooja Taparia and Daryl. I would like to thank Dr. Ananda, my friend, Dr. Conrad, Datta, as well as Dept for putting this excellent conference together. And I'm really looking forward to meeting my co-panelists here. So let me just start with a few words, because we are going to discuss dismantling patriarchy, masculinity, and misogyny. And this entire experience of social discrimination and exclusion, economic deprivation, cultural alienation, these are words we are listening to, and the political hostility, which is so deep-rooted and rampant that a majority of our urban and rural poor have unquestionably accepted the harsh reality as normal, and they have lost the ability to critically analyze and question the status quo. And added to this is that a majority of them lack education, skills, capacities, and motivation. And violence has been constantly used as a tool to enforce patriarchy. So just our fundamental starting point, I feel, is to ensure that every child, woman, and every aging adult feels safe, and hence each needs a fair go. And we are all in this together. And this is something which is so important. And for all of us to be in this together, we need an enhanced role of government and policy decision makers. And something that was included right in the beginning, I think we also need a more responsible stewardship of important resources that we have in our country and in the world. So the most important tool in this fight against patriarchy, I feel, is access to education, which has been reiterated many times in the earlier session, and economic autonomy. And at the end of this international conference, I think we'll make an effort to recommend implementable and actionable solutions. And we have with us in this panel 3 experts who are going to share their insights on the challenges and the way forward to dismantle forms of patriarchy. So I really look forward to this session, and I invite our first panelist for the discussion, Ms. Anupama Datta, who will highlight the consequences of existing societal systems and structures on women. So welcome, Ms. Anupama.
Thank you, Geeta ji. I hope you can hear me. Geeta ji, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, these days it's very difficult, it's like you never know whether people are able to hear you, see you, so you have to make sure. Anyway, thanks for inviting me for this panel. And I think when I saw the invitation, I was very happy that somebody is talking about elderly women and talking about patriarchy and dismantling it, because I think women are in a way disadvantaged at any stage in life by patriarchy, but more so when they are in the non-reproductive age, The best example is that, when you go to the government, you have a women and child development department, and you have a department that deals with elderly. Now, elderly women don't fall in anybody's category. When you go to WCD, they say, sorry, you are beyond reproductive age, not my issue. You go to the other ministry, they say, sorry, you're not our issue, you are women's issue. So this is the biggest example that I always quote of the kind of neglect that elderly women get from society, and this is part of patriarchy, very, very simply. Because you're not useful to society anymore, not even limited way of actively active, nobody bothers about it. So if you look at any scheme that the government has, whether for nutrition, whether for food, whether for medical aid, anything, it all stops at 49. There are no special schemes, as if, after 49, women don't have any special issues. They don't have any nutritional issues after that, nutritional deficiencies, we all know. But nothing happens in those areas. Nobody is bothered about it, and if you look at aging population, you look at the dynamics, you look at demographers reports, you look at estimates, you look at government data, everybody tells you that in the aging society, women are going to outnumber men very soon in India as well. It's a world over fact, world over, but in India also very soon, the elderly population will have more women because women's longevity is more than that of men. But where are the programs? Where are the issues where are the structural changes that we are making to deal with these challenges that we will face? Another example I'll give you from, I can quote you a million examples which range like whether women live in families or they live outside or they live anywhere. The worst example of patriarchy treating women, elderly women, is throwing them in Vrindavan and Kashi. That is the most extreme example of abandonment, in the name of religion, in the name of whatever else you call it. At home, I can give you examples of how women are being neglected. Their legitimate needs, even in lower middle class families, women don't have access to healthcare. I was doing a research in one of the not very remote areas, but in Delhi. And there was a lady, she came up to us because she was part of that research focus group discussion. She said, I know I have got hypertension, but I can't take medicine because I don't have the money to pay to the charity hospital that's close by. So I asked her, I said, what do you do? She says, जब लगता है कि BP high हो रहा है तो दवाई खा लेती हूँ, otherwise नहीं खाती. So I asked her, I said, how can you know that you are having a problem, you're not having a problem? She said, नहीं मुझे पता चल जाता. So this is heart of Delhi. This is not a remote area. This is not a poor family. But how their legitimate needs get neglected even in those households which are not so poor, which are not, it's not that they don't have education, it's not that they don't know about these issues, but what is the crucial point here is what is the value we give to this member of our family? Is this member of family respected? Is this member of family valued? I don't think it is. Across the board, we run a helpline and we come across so many cases of elderly women who have inherited property worth like maybe millions, and how they're treated by their family, how abominably their children treat them. It's like very, very sad cases, very, very sad cases. And the worst part is that, again, I come back to the state because I think state has a very big role to play in any such situation. What is the redress that's available to the elderly women? Who will they go and report this to? The police? What is the response they will get? Like what the younger women also get, that अपने घर के बाद बाहर कर रही हो, घर के बाद घर में सुलझाओ, क्या हो जाएगा बच्चों को अगर प्रॉपर्टी दे दोगे तो. These are the real responses that women get. So what is the trauma that they undergo is one thing. There is no redress for trauma in our systems. Second, the kind of redress that they get, the response that they get is so negative. They start feeling that they are doing something wrong by going and reporting such cases. Whereas I think it's a very legitimate case of reporting a bad behavior or a violence case to the authorities. Most of the time, what is the question put to us? That you have a Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act in this country. How many mothers do you think will take their children to the court? I mean, I fail to understand. If a child is behaving badly with a mother, why should that mother not take the child to the court? We make them feel so bad, and that's where the patriarchal values come into play. That how does the whole ecosystem, how does the ethos want us to behave? And do they blame us? If I, as a mother, go and report my son to the police, am I at fault? Or is the son at fault? So these are some of the very basic issues. Other issues that are very challenging for elderly women is health-seeking behavior. Like if you, I'm sure many of you who are working in the field also know this, that health-seeking behavior, women generally don't go out to seek help unless they are like, they really can't do without it. They keep pushing, like they keep putting it off that, no, it's not so bad. I can manage at home. I can manage with some Ayurveda, whatever. Or maybe some gharelu nuska. How many women really have access to the healthcare? So whenever you're talking to the government, you always say that it's for women, elderly women particularly, you have to do the outreach for them. You have to reach them because they can't reach the health situation, care facilities. I always give this example to policymakers and parliamentarians when I'm talking to them, that please go and get yourself registered in the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. You will go in circles in one go. And how do you reach that place? Transportation, public transport. Most unfriendly to elderly people, particularly the women. So what are the efforts that we are making? We keep saying smart cities, all that stuff. Now, my question to anybody who's listening is that when you say smart city, when you say social inclusion, when you say leave no one behind, when you say all those big things, what is the effort that you're making to change the structure of the public transport, which is so important in any, whether rural or urban cases? Like, I'll quote this example. CHC, one CHC, caters to at least 40 villages. Now, these 40 villages are not in the vicinity of that CHC. And the average distance of the CHC from a farthest village will be about 20 kilometers. No public transport. How do you expect this elderly women to come to the CHC and get help? There is no way. Very sadly, I'll tell you, we were doing some work in one of the Haryana villages, and there one lady, actually, she told me, she was practically in tears. She said, if there is a cow who's needing attention, the cow is immediately taken to the veterinary hospital. But if I need attention, nobody's bothered about it. Such a sad state of affairs. And what are they doing? Nothing. We just keep, saying these things, leave no one behind, do this, do that, and all those fancy stuff. But in reality, and in the post-COVID situations, when everybody's building back better, I think that elderly women are getting even a mile ahead, further from the services. Digital exclusion, most important case. If you are saying that digital is our solution for future, then we all know that how digitally disadvantaged these elderly women are. If government of a state says that you can only register for the social pension through e-portal, how do you expect that poor lady who doesn't even have money to travel to the local office to pay some money, because she doesn't have computer, she doesn't have smartphone? How do you expect her to register? So you expect her to go and pay a local cafe wala or somebody for registering? Then you are putting her at double risk. Her information is now available to everybody and anybody who wishes to use it the way they want to. So what is the safety that you guarantee her? And how do you expect her to fill up this form? Most, it's like the most, I don't know how, I don't even have the word to say. I feel so bad. And I feel so angered and annoyed. This whole business about, digital glamorization. How this digital glamorization is pushing people out of the systems, we have no clue. And it's very important for us to, when we are building back better after the pandemic, I think it's very important for us to actually look at it from the angle of these people who are at the last mile, who are getting even pushed out of the last mile also. And women, elderly women, okay, 60 plus women probably are better off. But if you look at 80 plus women, how do you expect them to deal with the system? We come across so many cases of these sort of women, who are cheated of their money from their banks, from their, Paytm accounts and all these things. And where do they go to get this FIR registered? Very simple. I'm sure people sitting here also will not know how to file an FIR when your Paytm money is getting swindled by somebody. How do you expect this lady to go and get it done? And once she loses her money, and because the money is so small, no policeman is going to bother about it. But for her, that 200 rupees or 500 rupees is more than $1 million. So, and her trust in the system is completely broken. After that, she is not likely to go back to your Paytm. So very easy to say only your thumb imprint is required, this, that, and the other. We have come across in Bihar, we have such difficulty in getting women registered for their, this Aadhaar card, without which they cannot apply for pensions, because most of them are, workers in the fields. Serious problem. Cataract, their irises can't be scanned. Their fingers don't have the whatever requisite. So, and then you say that if you can't get your Aadhaar done, you can't get your things done. Then how do you deal with these situations? And these are like I said, women are just getting, and the worst part is that it's not on our agenda. It's not on our radar. Because there is no data available. When you say that PMJY is benefiting millions of people, then please, I would like to know how many 60 plus, how many 80 plus women are getting benefited out of it. How many have the card, and how many are going to the hospitals and getting benefit? There is no data available. And when there's no data available, there's no case that we can build for them. It's just my word against somebody else. And it's so easy these days to tell that, you are trouble creators, you are NGOs, don't bother. But these are some very, very real issues that elderly women are facing. So I think right from basic issues of safety, security, access to food, access to healthcare, which are basic rights. And another issue I would like to say is about social security. Social security knowledge is also very important concern. And there also I find that work, how it is defined, how work is defined is very, very simple. And because work is defined in the way it is defined, supposing I always give this example of a pani puri wala. Supposing there is a pani puri wala and his wife prepares all the material for him. He goes and sells it. So he becomes a worker. The lady doesn't become any worker. She doesn't get any benefit. So most of the women who are in the unorganized sector, no access to pensions, no access to health care benefits, nothing. But they are doing all the work. And then other women from middle class households, those who give up their jobs midlife or whatever, to take care of family, to have a family, or maybe the parents-in-law, mother, father, or what have you. One thing, their careers are disrupted. Second, their contribution to the social security kitty gets reduced. So when they become old, and because they're going to live longer than the men, how do you expect them to continue? They're educated, they're in the workforce, but they're at a disadvantage. And there is no system in this country or anywhere else in the world where other people can, okay, if I'm sacrificing my job for my family, then is my family putting money for my social security? Nowhere. Because these issues, it's my duty as a mother or as a wife or as a daughter-in-law to do this. So why should I be compensated? But not at the same time realizing that in the long term, this woman just loses out on everything. So these are some very broad points that I would like to place in front of the participants, and they can share or they can ask me questions about anything else that is related to this or any experience they have in their country. Thank you.
Thank you, Anupama. People like us, we've been in the field of social work for years and years. And if you're hearing the same things, that is the sad part.
Yeah, that's actually the sad part.
Just want some difference happening, but still we're listening to the same things. And thank you for really pointing out that there are gender differences between health, in terms of health services, access to health, social security measures. People are getting pension because they're in those pensionable jobs, but is it possible? How easy is it for? I've seen when I go for my life certificate to the bank, there are women there who don't know what to do, and they'll come and ask us, "Kya karna hai, Benji?" So thank you so much, and we will go now to the next speaker, Shailesh. But I'm sure there are going to be a lot of questions because this is a topic which is so close to our hearts. Okay, thank you so much. Shailesh, over to Mr. Shailesh Mishra, again a good friend, and we work together. We've been on committees together, and I'm happy he's going to tell us about the status of aging population, especially in urban India. And based on his, I'm sure it's going to be based on his years of experience working with the aged. Over to you, Shailesh.
Thank you, Geeta ma'am, and thank you, the panelists, eminent panelists. Anupama has already started. She has set a benchmark. For me, it will be difficult. And thank you, Sophia College, for organizing such a wonderful conference, international conference. Yes, I will talk on aging in urban India because my experience is more in urban India. I come from the village, but for me, it's like a village has many things. They still have a family, they still have a structure, they still have that mohalla, they still have the temple, they still have that chowpal where people can talk, discuss, help each other. But in urban India, there are a lot of problems what I have seen. But before going ahead, I think for me, with the life cycle approach on aging, you suddenly don't become 60 or aged at 60 plus because you're senior. I think it's a life cycle approach that we should not forget. And that's what mistake the policy is making. Actually, we see 60 as only after 60. So whether any gender, whether it's women, men, and also LGBT also, there are a lot of issues there. So in the life cycle approach, it's from the first day from mother womb and to the tomb, the whole journey has to be seen in one perspective, not in different things. And as everywhere in the world, India is also undergoing the demographic change. We are having good healthcare. Mortality rate is we have a good child survival rate, and things are being better. If you see the economic condition, the medical care, healthcare, so population of seniors is growing actually. And here I find senior citizen elders are quite ignored and neglected. If you see the country, there are hardly few organizations are working in this country. We don't have a department or ministry for senior citizens in the country of such a big. It's sad. Still, we are struggling. We are fighting. Anupama knows that we don't have a ministry for all. Remember, all the ministers, the politicians, most of them are seniors, including the prime minister. So. Government of India has released 2019 a statistics which says there's 35% jump in the population of 60 plus. It's scary. So it's 7.6 crore in 2001 and 10.3 crore in 2011. And now it's predicted in 2021 it's 128 million people who are senior. And out of that, interesting is 67 million are men and 71 million are women. So there is a global phenomenon of feminization of aging. I think here also we are not prepared. We think seniors are they are in one category. All seniors are the same. They are not homogeneous actually, and they are different. And if you see 60 plus seniors is different, women seniors is different, 80 plus seniors is different, senior with dementia, Alzheimer's is different. So there are different categories. In fact, government has now understood there are three categories of senior citizens. There is young old, that is 60 to 69. There is old, there's 70 to 79, and there is very old, 80 plus. And here, where you have more female population coming up, like if you have 1,000 seniors men, there are more than that. Women are there surviving more because the country. We have not seen this as we see only male more in the younger age, but as we grow older, women live longer, and we are not prepared. We don't have enough centers for older women. In fact, Anupama shared where we have cases for older women, where to go. The NGOs working for women don't take older women cases. Ministry also said women and child go to this ministry and that ministry. So it's very difficult for us. And women are fighting against women, older women, again younger women. I think that also creates a lot of trouble for all of us to handle the cases. And this is what I'm talking about is true experience. I'm not academic, actually, it's my field experience. And what I also felt is neglect of mental health, especially women's. My mother spent 40 years in the kitchen and she never knew the outside world. And the mothers don't retire, like farmers don't retire. But we never paid attention to her needs, her psychological, mental need, her physical need. We only wanted her to cook, to look after children, to look after her husband, to look after the house. We never paid attention to that. I think that is a fault in our society. Currently, India, we talk about joint family, respect. But if you go to the urban India, where is the family? So I stay with my wife, my child. I've left my parents in the village. And now we have a micro-nuclear family. My wife is in a different city, I'm in a different city, my child in a different city. So dynamic of family has changed. But the policies, the thinking, our dependency on family are still there. We are in denial. We don't accept that family is not there. So we are still dependent. So it's like parenting. I am doing parenting of my child, but I also need parenting when I grow old. So parenting has become ageless now. So we all will be needing somebody to help us, but it is a dependency on each other and the human beings are not around us. I think that is also a big problem that is coming up. Seeing the migration, urbanization, United Nations and WHO had declared the decade as decade of healthy aging. So 2021 to 2030 to highlight the issues. All over the world, older people have been neglected. We actually are fighting for United Nations Convention of Elder Right or Older Person Convention, because until that, government is not forced. India has a national policy of older person. It's still not implemented. Most of the states have the policy, is not implemented. We have senior citizen maintenance law, where we talk about protecting seniors from abuse and other things, but still not implemented. And there is an amendment in Parliament in 2019, and the political parties are fighting among themselves, but nobody is paying attention to that. And when we go to police station, when we go for any grievances, we are nowhere. As Anupama said, where we will go? Police station will say it's a family matter. So you again back to the family. You're going to stay in the same family, and then there is a problem. What I also felt is urban cities, especially Mumbai, Bangalore, metropolitan cities, we have come here to work, and now we are growing old. The city is also growing old. The drainage system is growing old. The roads are growing old. We are making metros. We are converting drainages, in the bigger drainages. We are making big buildings, vertical, concrete jungles. But we are not working at human beings. We are not thinking about, I am going to live 100 years in this city, Mumbai city, but where is my financing? Where is the social security? Where is my job? Where is my recreation center? Where is my entertainment? Where is my transport? Where is the needs and demand I need? I need services, I need goods. It's not there. In the COVID time, government was so ageist. I say that. They said senior citizens should not step out of the house. And you allowed younger people to go out and then bring the virus and kill the older people. Still, in Mumbai, just recently, BMC, Mumbai Municipal Corporation, stopped all parks and gardens. We were not allowed to go out. Senior citizens need to go out to walk. They have diabetes, they have cardiac problems, they have blood pressure. Where are the gardens? It all also closed. So here, as we grow old, as the city grows old, human beings, whether you're a woman or man, you also grow old. And you need certain types of needs and demand to be met. If you don't meet, then you kill the human being. There's a human rights perspective to the whole old age also in the urban India. We can't forget, because of the urban, we have everything. We need healthcare, we need medical facility, we need pension, we need shelter, homeless. Geeta ma'am, there's a problem of homeless in this city. People are staying under the bridges, near the railway stations. Whether it's a winter, whether rain, whether in the Delhi it's a bad winter, whether the summer is there, where are we going to go? And when you forget, because they are old people, we get called at 12 o'clock in the night. There's an old person lying down at the Nerul station. Come and take. I look at my watch at 12 o'clock in the night. I said, what are you doing? Can't you take help of police? Can't you feed him? No, it's your NGO. You are responsible. But when there is a crow, when there is a cat in the street, people will run. Fire brigade will come. Police will come. All the NGOs will come and help. But if there is an old person on the street, nobody will come. And this is urban India. We have lost humanity. I think here we need to think about urbanization. Urbanization exists minus human rights. I think that's a very sad part of it. So as a human rights perspective, we need food, shelter, clothing, but we also need social security. We need freedom from discrimination. We need standard of healthcare. We need protection from crime. We are being abused. There is spam. There is a SRA buildings coming up, and the small kholi is transferred to the child from the male parent or the female parent. So there is an abuse happening in property right in the city like Mumbai. I think there's a mistake happening. So what is the problem faced by urban elder? I think first is finance. We don't have proper social security. There is no job opportunity. I'm living longer, 20, 80, 90, 100 years, but I don't have enough time, enough thing to give back to the society. I don't have enough income. So where are the self-help group? So self-help group is working in Marathwada, but not in Mumbai city. So we need something to be financially viability for seniors in a city like Mumbai. We need affordable and accessible healthcare. So there is a government scheme, but if you go there, it's only for yellow Aadhaar card, yellow card, or orange card. But seniors are seniors. My income is restricted. I don't have any income. I don't have any constant income. So I need affordable income. I need ambulances when I need. So where are the ramps? If you go to the hospital, multi-story buildings, and my residential complex, I don't have stretcher to go inside the lift. My mother, when she got sick, I had to pull her in my arms and take her down from 4th story to ground floor, because my building is not prepared to. Where are the building plans? Where are the architects? Are they not going to grow old? Are the mayor is not going to grow old? So where is the shelter? Where is the old age home? We don't talk about daycare center. There's no recreation, ma'am. There's no entertainment. I am just not old person in the village. I need music. I need dance. I need to go out. I need to talk. I need to walk. I need to do thing which I was as a child. Why you restrict me? Why there is a discrimination? And there is a protection. There's so many criminal things happening, crime happening. Again, older person, there people are keeping watch on poor or lonely elders who are living alone in the bungalow in the flat. So where is the senior desk in the police station? Where is the Mohalla committee? So and transport. We don't have low-lying buses. I have to climb to Dadar railway station to go to Mira Road. I have to climb 4 steps. Of course, elevators are there now, but used by mostly by younger people, and so steep. I feel scared. Yesterday, I saw a lady falling out of it. Her sari got entangled in the elevator, and the lift used by other people, not by old people. So we need to have proper system. So it's not age friendly. When we are building metros, when we are building water transport, we should think of age friendly, disabled friendly things. Where because we are making urban cities are made, villages were already there. But when you are making good things, new things, smart cities, are smart city age friendly? That we have to think. And also, when we're talking about corporators, where we're talking about younger generation, younger politicians, we're talking about bureaucrats. Do they have training? Do the police have the training? Do a traffic police has training how to talk to old person? Whether female crosses the road, whether he or she has that kind of humanity there, how to treat an older person. So we need to train our corporators. We need to train our municipality. In the municipality, we need to have senior citizen desk. We need to have IAS officer who manages things. You might have a policy in BMC, a municipal corporation, but who will run? You will run after every corporator. The corporator, what he'll do? He'll make a toilet for you. He'll make a small, statue for you or for older person. He'll make a small sitting in a small garden, or he'll make a small garden for you in the middle of the road. Go and sit there. So it's not done. We as the seniors need to have everything what as a child I need. So in urban India, because we are making it, we are talking about urbanization, we are talking about new cities, smart cities. We need to have technology friendly, intervention. We need to involve school children. We need to involve women's group. We have to involve Mahila Mandals. Old person is not suddenly old. We all are growing to old. I think that's important. And lack of political will. I think this is creating more problem for all of us. And what we need to do? We need to talk about implementation of senior citizen policy at the national level, state level, municipality level, and a Gram Panchayat level. Can't we make others Gram Panchayat? Can't we make others municipality where seniors are treated? We give them awards, So let's talk about it. Let involve NCC and NSS, Education Institute, Research Institute, like your Nirmala Niketan, SNDT or TISS. We involve every institute to train about gerontology and geriatric. Then only we'll talk about aging. And when we talk about aging, don't forget LGBT, because they also are growing old. Transgender also growing old. We are making old age home for only male and female, not making for old transgenders. I think we need to rethink about our strategy of seniors and especially older women, because my mother required more calcium, more vitamin, more mineral, and she needed a companion at her age, who can understand older women. But as a male doctor, male companion, she is not very comfortable. So we need to have women who can look after women also. Thank you.
Thank you, Shailesh, for this very poignantly described ground realities, which we are aware of. But you stress the importance of addressing all these very, very important things. Thank you so much. And I'm sure there will be questions later, but we'll go to our next speaker. And our next speaker today is Dr. Vaida, and she's going to use the old African proverb, "It takes a village to raise a child," to discuss how the village perpetuates patriarchy and masculinity and the challenges to its transformation. So over to you, Dr. Vaida. Dr. Vaida, you're muted. You need to unmute yourself. Dr. Vaida, you need to unmute. Thank you. Sorry.
I just forgot I was muted. So thank you. It's a pleasure being here. I thank the organizers for this conference and for inviting me as a panelist here. The last two pieces speech has been very illuminating, some of it quite to me also. So I thank the previous speakers. And as our moderator said, I'm going to talk about, when I used to work in Africa amongst my friends, they informed me of this proverb called "It takes a village to raise a child." And when they spoke about it, they literally meant a village because, Africa, there are a lot of villages and people lives in tribes and others. When even those living in city, they go back to their homes, it is still a village kind of situation. So here I will talk about what that village mean in today's society and how that village contributes to perpetuating patriarchy and masculinity and the challenges to transforming of this village into a society that is committed to gender equal and gender neutral socialization that speaks directly at dismantling patriarchy and masculinity. As we know, patriarchy and masculinity are shaped through gender socialization of children since they are little. It takes several forms. It takes the form of, for example, nutrition. The last, least, and leftovers that women eat in adulthood is shaped in childhood. Boys are fed first, get the best and more in quantity. It takes the form, for example, appearance and dress. Girls are restricted from dressing a certain way since childhood, which is enforced more strictly after puberty. No shorts, no body-hugging clothes, no jeans, covering the chest and head. It is reinforced, it takes the form of conduct, the conduct that there are about how girls are expected to sit, talk, laugh, interact. Girls are expected to talk minimally, softly, or not at all. They are expected to interact only if necessary and are chided and reprimanded if they sit by spread leg or when they are sitting or squatting, and sometimes they're not allowed to play with boys. It takes the form of rules about demeanor of children. Girls' behavior are highly regulated and they are trained to be shy, obedient, respectful, and generally self-effacing. And any a little girl that does not quite conform to these expectations are immediately labeled as a rebel or a tomboy, and there are consequences to how that particular girl then interacts with society as she grows. Then there are rules about it takes the form of mobility, rules around mobility. Outdoor mobility is highly restricted for girls, and particularly after puberty. Girls cannot go alone, far, or for purposes that are not considered, for example, women's role. Playing outdoors are curtailed, and when they go out, they are heavily chaperoned by men within the family. There are kind of rules around visibility, about being seen as a human that is in existence. Girls, particularly after puberty, have rules about covering themselves, head cover, expected to be invisible to strangers or men. They're confined to homes and within homes in the kitchen. And there are also all kinds of rules and restrictions. Girls are limited or have limited or restricted educational opportunities. There is almost no scope of vocational skills as compared to boys. What girls are trained in right from childhood, most of them are in the care. Women, girls expected to help with washing, cleaning, cooking, care of the siblings, care of the elderly, and Whereas boys are socialized differently in terms of, going out in the farm, cutting, chopping, and other kind of vocational skills. Girls are generally not considered worthy of investment, like as if there is no returns out of resources that may be spent on. Also, if there is a competition for resources even within families, opportunity sources are saved for boys and not girls. And talents, if when it is either not recognized or when it is recognized, it is not honed. So these are the various forms that gender socialization takes place, that perpetuate masculinity and patriarchy, with gender roles and gender traits for girls that then men and women, who then go ahead and further reinforce this kind of socialization. Now, who does this kind of socialization? Who are responsible for this? So it is not only the parents, the immediate family or the extended family that constitute this so-called village that it takes to raise the child. It is all of the society and the institutions and structures, systems that is within this society that contributes to this kind of socialization. It is, for example, it is reinforced in the schools in the way, for example, there are different uniforms for boys and girls in they choose to teach, in the different kind of sports that boys are encouraged for or girls are encouraged. It is, for example, reinforced by the teachers that teach at the school, who are themselves parents in their homes and enforce the same gender socialization in the school and all the forms that I talked about. It is reinforced in, for example, school textbooks, in the stories that give examples to explain languages, history, social sciences, and others. All that reinforce the genderization and gender stereotype and roles from girls and boys. For example, in the stories that are there in the textbooks and narratives that used to explain subjects, the pronoun that is often used is always he. In fact, my 10-year-old son, when he was 7 or something, was always questioning, why is this always these stories there is he? Weren't they girls over here? And it was very interesting for me to have this conversation about gender socialization with him. Particularly, he doesn't have any other girl within his age within the family, and he is in touch with other girls at his school or around the home, in the society, and where he plays. And then it is reinforced by the friend circle of the children, who when they talk to each other, it's very clear the gender roles in the homes and families, they imbibe. They are convinced that is it. It is the mother who works in the home and kitchen, and the father who brings home the mullah, who is the breadwinner of the family, that runs the family. My son believes that, despite the fact that there is no male role model around him, and all the breadwinning is done by women in the family, despite that, he believes that this is an anomaly, and the norm is established gender role that comes, that he hears in his friends or in school, similarly to friends. And children at that age, it is very difficult to resist any kind to saying anything different from what is the norm. There is tremendous pressure for children to fit in and to be accepted within their groups. These kind of socialization is also reinforced in what kids watch in TV, in ads, in cinema, and what kind of message they put out with regard to the role of women and men in society. That has a tremendous influence on the children. Also, in, for example, popular culture, the songs they hear, the music they listen to. If you listen to the lyrics of some of the popular songs, you can see how deeply they are steeped in toxic masculinity, or reinforce the roles of submissive roles for gender. or roles within the family and the private sphere for women and girls. So these kind of, perpetuate these patriarchy. It's also influencing, for example, the children books and stories they read, fairy tales and fables, etc. All of them reinforce the gender roles and the gender traits for girls and boys that, that then gets consolidated when they are men and women. The other institution, for example, in temples or other religious institutions, when children are taken there, they could see around them the roles that women are played, women play and boy play. There is segregation often in these institutions of where men sit and women sit, and what women are allowed to do and not allowed to do. All of these children learn through, imitation and imbibing what the norms are, what they see around themselves, what people they trust and care for them do and believe in. So that's the way this larger village we talk about in the institution structures within the village reinforce and perpetuate patriarchy, masculinity. But there are tremendous challenges to changing mindset of this so-called larger village. And even in homes where there is an effort imparting gender equal and gender neutral socialization among children, but it is that what they do at home is undone outside the home, or if there is a relatively gender aware equal environment outside in the school, then it is undone in the environment at home. So there are tremendous challenges to reinforce a positive and gender equal socialization without isolating the child. If you're very strict, trying to impart gender neutral socialization, practically isolating the child, and that itself is very harmful for the development of there are some small changes already beginning in this notion of gender socialization, or challenges to it, or changes that are coming. You do see these days ad campaigns that talk about gender equality and gender neutral kind of approach to things. For example, I recall there was an ad about the implications of boys don't cry. And it was almost everybody, most families, they prevent boys from crying, and we have seen there is studies and all on how that kind of severely restrain emotional development of boys, and leading to being participants in domestic violence, in perpetrators of violence when they grow up. Or there are campaigns about girls taking on traditionally male roles. There are ads about opening up occupation for girls that were not so, until now, not accessible to all. Positive role models, conscious gender bending of roles and traits. So you see these small changes happening around you. Just one small observation about this: some of these changes and ad campaigns, of course, are commercial purposes for the moment, but nevertheless, I believe they are a welcome, beginning. But what is important challenge is to amplify these efforts. The changes we see are a drop in the ocean. The challenge is to amplify these efforts, not only in the number of increasing the number of these change campaigns, but also the spread, the reach of these campaigns to the lowest denomination of the society and the far remotest corners of the society. And by doing so, by amplifying this, there is a potential to achieve a critical mass of people in the society that believe in gender equal and gender neutral socialization that challenges these stereotypical gender roles assigned to men and women. And I believe that can be achieved by approaching the issue from multiple angles. Soft rules in institutions like school, colleges, of, for example, gender neutral uniforms and courses gender neutral, that are consciously bending gender roles and traits in what they do in these institutions. Check for gender socialization in textbooks and reform of school texts with gender neutral references. And even at one's own level of scope of influence, even if one cannot change the textbook that one is expected to teach, you can certainly raise a question about, for example, why is the pronoun he here? And a question about, why is it only a boy who is shown as an engineer, for example, or as an electrician? Can girls do those kind of vocations and trainings? Just putting a question in the mind so that they can think for themselves. Check for popularizing or calling out of the gender socialization in children's books, ads, cinema, other popular culture in ways that are non-confrontational. Because we have to remember that all of the society around all of men, women, girls, boys, we are all products of the socialization that we have been receiving since childhood. So the manner of doing this can never be confrontation or imposition or through rules and regulations or legislation. It has to be through soft kind of policy rules that is focusing on popularization. Also promoting many more such campaigns and add popular culture that takes on the more conservative sections of society that resist the change in gender socialization to that promote patriarchy and masculinity and misogyny, to one that is a more gender equal, gender neutral and gender aware socialization that chips in patriarchy and masculinity from spreading and perpetuating and reinforced in society. And I think I will leave it at that and stay open for any kinds of questions, Gasha, and look forward to discussion on the matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Vaida. And it takes us back to our schooling days when we were told to be proper girls, do things in the most proper way. Don't, and always, you cannot put one foot on the other. You have to very daintily sit. And, it started from there. And today we are able to understand how deep, these type of practices have influenced so many people. So thank you so much. And also for talking about, raising this very important understanding about who's responsible for the socialization. And I'm sure we're going to take these points later. And what we'll do is we'll just start with a few, areas for discussion. I'm not going to post them as just questions, but I think if we can all, any of us can answer these, I'll respond to this rather. So panelists, I just feel that the studies have shown that commonly used measures of gender equality scores, such as female labor force and the number of seats that are held by women in the parliament, these do not significantly influence society's acceptance of violence against women and children. And there is a need for international and domestic violence prevention policies to not only focus on narrowly defined concepts of economic or political empowerment, because that is insufficient when it comes to challenging the existing gender equalities. So based on your experiences, what are the ways in which public policy can prevent violence against children, women, and aging populations? If anybody can answer these, or respond to these, so that will help in setting this discussion forward. Any of you?
Anupama?
Yeah.
Very smart, Shailesh. Okay, I'll respond to this very, like I said in my initial comment also, that see, we all look up to government for a policy is a parameter within which the system operates. And we always say that, for the vulnerable segments, it is always the government that should take the lead. That is the basic minimum. Now, the problem that we have faced, and Shailesh will, I'm sure, vouch for it, that, we have these very excellent, statements, policies and policy statements and everything. But when it comes to implementation, there are serious lacunas there, both structural and behavioral. Shailesh was mentioning that, about a policeman on the traffic signal, how helpful is he to an elderly lady crossing the road or getting lost or asking for directions or what have you. So these are, I think, I have this very limited experience with the Delhi police, where they have a special senior citizen security cell. Now, I don't know what training they're giving to those people. Are they giving them specific, because police force is trained in a certain way when they get that basic training. But when they deal with human rights issue, when they deal with vulnerable segments of population, those who are assigned that duty, what kind of training module is there? I don't know. Is it, and how are they selected, first of all? Is it that those who are not fit for any other job are getting pushed in that segment? I don't know. Because my apprehension is that that's the case. Because my understanding is that, they should be properly trained. Like, those who are dealing with, for example, rape victims. How do they, what is the protocol? How do you deal? What are you told as a police person to do first? How do you make that person comfortable in, telling you whatever experience he or she has, Similarly, for elderly people, like I said, those who are victims of violence, whether family violence or ageist violence or by a neighbor or by anybody else, what is the body language of the police officer dealing with that person? Shailesh mentioned that IAS officer को वहाँ बिठा. IAS officer को बिठाने से कुछ होगा नहीं, क्योंकि उसका behavior शायद उनसे भी बुरा होगा जो बेचारे लोग जो नीचे के level के, because he thinks that he is a heaven born. How can he deal with the people on the road? So he'll probably have more condescending attitude towards an elderly person. And I think that's where, when we were doing the research on the Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act, that is one thing that we pointed out and we highlighted in all forums, that most people don't report these things to the authorities because the experience of the people who go to report is not good. And elderly people don't go by ratings anywhere. They go by, what they hear from the others. If I go there and I get treated badly, I'm going to tell 20 people around me that, oh, that place is horrible, don't ever venture. When we were doing research on elder abuse cases, almost everybody who was responding to us knew about the police helplines, but very few called them. Because the behavior of the people or the kind of responses that they were getting were not very encouraging. So I think that if policy, of course, there's no doubt that government has to take the lead. Whether, like Shailesh was saying, that even at local self-government levels, they also have to take the lead, because at the community level, they are the ones who can respond first. If a local panchayat has a member in the panchayat who will look after the land dispute in the area, and if elderly is being treated badly, if that person or that cell in the panchayat takes care of the situation, then they don't have to go to the police at all. They don't have to escalate it. Similarly, in large cities, we have all these RWAs and you have all these sorts of semi bodies who are neither here nor there and more in the civil space than in the government space. So but government, when it responds, it has to be serious about that response. It doesn't have to be just just for putting it on record that yes, I have this center and I have all this. I think it's very important for government to generate that confidence in people, because these are vulnerable segments of population. They are not the ones who can take care of themselves. They're anyway hesitant to approach authority. So if you are wanting to really help them, I think it's important that you have structural and behavioral. Behavioral is more important than structural. So this is my very broad response. If you want some nuances, you can ask me about it.
Thank you, Anupama. If Dr. Vaida would like to respond.
Yes, I would like to say that it is not as if we do not have policies. As you know, there are policies. There is what is called on violence against women and help with that. There is what is called the scheme of one-stop center, which is a 2015 scheme to facilitate access to integrated range of services that include medical aid and police assistance, legal aid, case management, psychosocial counseling, temporary support services, women of violence. So the idea is that these one-stop centers would be set up across the states. But the issue is the access of women to these and policies, like Anupam pointed out. What kind of access, what kind of resources these things have, what kind of access they are making it, how much to the extent to which they make these schemes accessible to women, and the schemes' own availability of resource, for example, for psychosocial counseling. Mental health counseling ability is very, very minimal, So for these schemes to success and policies to succeed, you need all the various support systems that support, systems and things in place that doesn't exist. And so the access to these schemes are very minimal. So having policy is great, but also important along with it is to how to get women affected benefit from these. Thank
you. Yeah, thank you so much. Shailesh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think it's a continuous process. It's not one-time training and about police officer, or it's a continuous process, because once you train the person and he's trained for life, no, because it's evolving. And also I think we have training for teach IAS officer, IPS officer regarding women and children, but there is no training for senior citizens, like what are the problem, what are the issues. I'll just share my example. I went to Ankleshwar to train an SP office, and the superintendent of police, he was very dynamic. He called around his big officers and around 2 days training, psychological and social training. And we're talking to traffic havaldar and small, layman, small policeman, and they never knew, and they told us, "हमको तो पता ही नहीं क्या problem है old लोगों का." Like, so most of the time, old people don't have problem. I think that's the whole idea. So we are still in denial. So we need to not only train IAS officer, IPS officer, judiciary also. Many judges, I'm sorry to say that, they discriminate. They don't say, they say, okay, you have to adjust. They don't know about the law. There's a maintenance act and tribunal. And tribunal, the collector is a key person. He doesn't know about the Citizen Act. We need to, it's a continuous process. UPSC, MPSC, in all kind of training should be done and decentralized. Decentralize it to the local body, to the Gram Panchayat, make a Mohalla committee. In Mumbai city, we had a Mohalla committee. We had Gram Panchayat level, as Anupama said. Then only, we don't send, all Delhi doesn't command to my village, okay? My village should command to me, myself. I think then it will make difference.
Yeah, I think these are extremely important, because, all these groups like Mohalla committees, the Panchayati Raj system, which we have, which we can really utilize to bring forth so many things. I think that is something that, but my other question to you was what, there are so many gaps in our information, but what Anupama said earlier is that the data gaps that are available, and what are these gaps, and how do we really work on this? And if you can give us some suggestions, at least 2 or 3 suggestions on how we can, what type of gaps are there, and how we require, what is it that with whom do we need to work with, so that there is information, there is data, there is research being done. So that I would really like to know, and I'm sure your audience here would like to know this.
Should I answer that?
Yes, anyone.
Okay. Yeah, so of course Anupama will also do that. But I think gaps is, again, I'll go back. We are not working together. We all are working isolated. I am working for my organization. You are working for your organization. We are not together. There is no joint committee or joint movement. We need to have joint movement with country-wide, city-wide committee, and then and there is a lack of international intention. You see, last 10 years we are fighting with United Nations to make a convention for older people. They don't understand the world is growing old. So from international level to bottom, we are not together. I think here we first have to join hand. That's one thing. Then we, as Anupama said, there is data, because government, prime minister, any ministry or any department, we don't have figures, we don't have statistics. So they don't agree, and they don't work on what you say. So they need solid figures. And lastly, this study by IIPS and TISS, I think that has a very good data. And but to take the data into the study and the policies, also we need some education institute, involve education institute into this. Funding research is happening in pharmaceutical industry, not happening on social, I will say social intervention, social engineering. There is no funding. So there is a gap. So government doesn't understand this, the funding needs for social data. If you don't have data, I am growing old, my mother is growing old. Example, I am suffering with allergy now. So what is this allergy? New kind of allergy. Nobody knows. The COVID situation, I am taking the third booster dose, fourth booster dose, but there is no data, right? So we need to start from here. What happened with smallpox? What did happen with COVID? So government is just acting on action or reaction. We are not thinking long term. We are making 5-year policies, but not 5-year policy for social things. My psychological, mental well-being. We need to work together. We as activists at the Education Institute, government should not think we are an enemy. If we are NGOs, we are working for society. We are part of. We are government. We have elected them. They are masters, but they can't be master for always. We are masters. They are servants. They have to act as we need. So we need to come together to fight it, to have good research, and research which is applicable, not from a files. I know, Geeta ma'am, if you remember, when I started Silver Innings, I was struggling. What are older people? I did not knew. I didn't have any data. So there is no applicable or like implementable research. So we are doing research for PhD for books. No, I think here research is needed for ground. I need solid research so I can do something good for the society.
Thank you so much. Would you like to add to this, or
Anupama? Yeah. I'll just say that I think funding for research is a very important point. I think, Shalish, we are struggling as it is. Like, there are and whatever research is being done. For example, if you look at insurance, then insurance companies do a lot of research on elderly people. It's not that they don't do research, but that is a market research. That's a research that deals with the market segment. And I think that's also one of the part of our problem, that those segments of the society which the market service, their demands get highlighted, their demands get researched in million ways and gets articulated very well. But the demands of those who are outside the market purview, those demands are not getting as much attention as they should get. And post-COVID, you have to understand the exclusion that poverty has caused to people, because the people in the villages that we work with, where people have, the young migrants have gone back and have become dependent on the already stressed piece of land that they have. That is causing the stress. If they were earlier able to take care of the elderly parents by sending some money, today the situation has reversed. Now they're depending on these elderly people who are growing whatever little vegetable or whatever little crop that they have in their land. So those people will not create effective demand. And if they don't create effective demand, market forces are not interested in them. And that's the problem. If 400 billion people are going to fall below poverty due to COVID, then I think that's the segment of population, and that's the kind of impact we have to understand on the elderly. Because if we keep saying that family is the primary source, we have to look at the challenges the family today is facing. In Bhuj, after the earthquake, we came across cases where people were openly saying that this old man should have died in the earthquake. I would have got 1 lakh rupee. What is the point of his being alive now?
Yeah.
It was so desperate a situation, and I think that situation, that desperation will come if economy doesn't grow back. Whatever happens, we don't have a V-shaped recovery or what have you. Then we are in for some very, very serious serious economic, and that economic part will have implications on all the other things. If you look at the food eating pattern of these people, we were doing research in Uttarakhand once after the floods there. And we found that the number of meals reduced. what was on the plate reduced. And the elderly were the first to get the reduced portions. It's very normal. They call it part of evolution, that we look to our descendants. Ascendants don't become so important in crisis situations. And if that is the case, then whose responsibility it is to ensure that the elderly's welfare is being met? And first of all, to articulate those needs, like Shailesh was saying, that who will tell that there is a need when he was struggling? Who will tell that there is a need? And these needs are, okay, research students do great job, but they do only micro studies. If we know that this country will grow old in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years time, then it's government's responsibility to create that macro, atmosphere, understand that macro dynamics. NSSO, I remember, used to bring out this, specifically on elderly people. They used to bring out a report every 10 years. That report is not happening now. And that should happen, because that was exclusively focused on elderly people. Okay, it was a sample survey, but it was an all India sample survey with authentic information. If we are collecting data on labor, are we adding the age dimension to it? Are we adding the gender dimension to it? Labor data is getting collected every day. But that is the problem, that when we collect any data at macro level, we don't put age as a category. And that's why we do not have authentic information, which, like for example, census, if you look at that, census is the best place where you can collect wonderful data, which will be very rich, which will be very accurate. But that is not happening. So it's important for us to first list out, government of India has this new, Shailesh, what is that? Integrated program for senior citizens. There is this new scheme that they have.
Sacred.
And they have this action plan. They also have this action plan.
Action plan.
So yeah, under the action plan, they have research as a component. But what is the research that they're funding? We don't know. Like Shailesh said, it's important for us to have organizations like this involved in it. They have such rich experience. They have such diverse, they have like excellent resources that they can give us. They understand aging also very well. But are we making use of those institutions? Are we that's what I keep saying, that it's not on the agenda. Right things are not on the agenda, which should be.
Thank you, Anupama. I was just going to add to what you said, because College of Social Work, where I come from, we did a study with ICMR, and we realized in terms of nutrition and what Shailesh was saying, the older, the 60 to 80 age group. And we found that there's high incidence of non-communicable and chronic diseases. And we also realized that there's a clear gender difference because women are less nourished, and especially, and the incidence of metabolic syndrome, particularly high blood sugars and raised blood pressure, is very high among women, and a lot of lifestyle disorders. But for them, the cost of treatment is so much. Medication is, and then, as you rightly said right in the beginning, access to health services. And we really find that we require a greater awareness for services for the elderly and their caretakers, at which our guest speaker right in the beginning spoke about. For their caretakers to ensure that the diet and the exercise, otherwise, which is, it's slowly muscle wasting for them. And then there's the onset of cardiovascular disease. So all these things are so important, and so much we need to go back to. So we have all the data, we have the information about all these things, but what is important is for us to put, take it forward in terms of our own implementation in the various ways that we can. So this was the other thing I wanted to also ask, because we have to take the questions from the audience. So let's go to that first, and then we can come to sum it up, so that we're not wasting any more time. So do we, Dr. Lata, do we have any specific questions? Because a lot of comments from our from the participants, which is, I think, very, it shows that, everybody is concerned and everybody is aware of, the things that are happening. And there are some. Would you like to tell us if there are any pertinent questions? Otherwise, we'll just read out the.
Hello, good day, madam.
Yeah.
Madam,
Anyone?
generally, I'm Nagarajan from Tamil Nadu.
No,
We request participants to please put your questions in the chat box instead of asking them.
Yeah, please put that. So we have some questions.
Anna?
I'll read out the questions for
Yes,
you.
Anna, please. Yes, Anna.
So there is one question for Ms. Anupama from Dr. Vibhuti Patel. So after every Kumbh Mela, hundreds of aging women are left behind as their own family members desert them. What has state done for them?
Very difficult question to answer. I think this should be put to the minister, not to me. But I'll still answer that after the PIL was filed in the Supreme Court for maintenance, for knowing the status of the elderly in the country, Government of India instructed all the states to make old age homes. So UP has 75 old age homes in each district, one in each district. I don't know the kind of quality and services that they are providing, but they have these old age homes where these women are accommodated. So that's the best they can do. I think there are efforts to reunite them with the family, but once the family has left them, there is no choice that. And most of these women are uneducated. They can't even probably say the name of the village from where they have come. And these are. It's not just Kumbh Mela. It's I'll tell you how we started our first helpline. It happened in Chennai actually, And what we found was that Vellore Medical College used to have a geriatric wing at that time, and many elderly people were brought to this medical hospital, and they were just left there. The son or the daughter would say that, okay, I'm going to get the papers made, you sit here. And the lady would just sit there, or the man would just sit there, and the children would just vanish. And then the police did not know what to do with them. So then the Commissioner of Police got in touch with us, and we started a service, of at least providing them some respite care and putting them in some homes till their homes were found. Many of these people were affected by, dementia and Alzheimer's, and they were very difficult to deal with at that point in time because not many caregivers understood the challenges of taking care of an Alzheimer's patient and their behavior. So it was really, really challenging. And about this, I can say that, okay, they're put in some homes, they're put in some institutions, they're not on the road mostly. But what happens to them? What is the level of care that they get there? What is the level of understanding these old age homes have for care and service providing? I don't know. That really concept.
Yeah.
Any more questions, Anna?
The next question from Ms. Bindu Shri. What is the percentage of old people who are still under the control of their children, and is there an increase or decrease in it?
I don't know whether we have information.
No, there is no data that, how do you define control first of all? You mean those living with the families? That will be about 55%. But they're not in control. They're just living with their children and their families.
Okay, ma'am. So the next question is from Dr. Asha Vijay Rao, and it's how can we generate visibility of elders unitedly from this platform?
Shailesh, you are the expert.
So no, this is a very good platform. In fact, Dept is part of the organizing committee for this conference, and we all are fighting this unitedly. What we all need to do with this conference is, when we're talking about this problem and issues, write about it, talk about it. Just don't keep it for this platform or the conference. We attend a lot of conferences offline also, and in the conference we discuss blah 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 blah. Like we go to Samsan Bhumi and we talk about that, and then after that we forget. Same thing happens at the conference. We talk about so many things, after the conference we forget. No. Here, as a responsible organization, we should prepare white paper, we should submit to the ministry, we should also add this very important, I think this is a very important advocacy group. There's a United Nations Convention, this open-ended working group coming up. We as a part of Dept and this organization committee should present a white paper to the United Nations. and ask for the convention, because this is the time, next 1-2 years, it is going to happen. And we all need to talk unitedly, different countries. The problem are same. The dimension, needs and demand might be different, but older person, older women, children, all have their own right, and they all need to be treated with dignity and respect. We need to, not let it go. This conference is important. I can say a key thread for all of us to, and don't pull it down. We should make it a flag and, hoist it at United Nations. And then it comes down to the country, because then only the Prime Minister will hear, because otherwise, and one more important thing, I think elections are coming up. This is my favorite point. 10% of the population of this country is old person. 25% population voting right of older person. When we go for election, ask your elected representative, whether councillor, MP, MLAs, what you're doing for old people. If you're not going to do anything for old people, I'm going to use nota. None about the, I'm not going to vote for you. I'm not going to vote. If you unite, then people will work. Ministry will hear you. Otherwise, you will be neglected for 100 years and nothing will happen. We have to fight it out.
There's another question from Dr. Rao, and this is for Mr. Mishra. I think Nagarajan from the chat box also had a similar question. So, is it not possible for an exclusive ministry for older people to be formed?
Of course, why not? Government is waiting to form many ministries so they get more funding. They can accommodate more ministers, MLAs. But the will to make a ministry is important. Now we are only part of NISD, a small department in the whole ministry of so many crores of people, controlled by one ministry, one IAS officer. We need a ministry, but again, what government has done is made a policy for senior citizen and made a council of senior citizens. Who are part of this council of senior citizens of Government of India, all retired or lost MPs and MLAs have become members of this committee. They are not taken Federation and Association of Senior Citizens. For asking ministry, we need to vote. And when we go to vote, then we should ask, and this is not my NGO, your NGO, or Nirmaniketan or Sophia College. We all need to write a postcard. Write a postcard to Prime Minister. It's a good idea. I need a ministry for senior citizens. Send crores of postcard to ministry, the government. I think things will happen. And start with your municipality. Go to your municipal corporation. Tell them I need a special department for senior citizens. Hyderabad had done it earlier. Then you go to state. Then you go to central. I think things will happen. Don't lose your heart. We need to fight it out.
Thank you so much, Shailesh. If we don't have any more questions, do we have any more questions?
Yes, ma'am, we do. So there's another question from K. Nagarajan. Yesterday, generations give importance to elders in discipline and values which at present we are lacking. Is it due to the decline of the joint family system?
I think like Vahida ma'am said, because she has not spoken.
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I had an unstable connection, so I couldn't hear.
Yes, ma'am, just a minute. Yesterday, generations give importance to elders and discipline and values which at present we are lacking. Is it due to the decline of the joint family system?
I will not say that it's only due to the decline of joint family system. I think it's general, the response is the general changing of the society as a whole that is responsible for that idea. That the society is moving towards a more individualistic approach to life, and because of that, there is a notion, and also with this kind of the world becoming a global village, change of this with the internet and all going back and forth. There is across the globe, there is also an introduction of a different approach to life in different stages of life, and more, particularly in the urban areas, they're influenced by the notion, the parents give birth to their children, they raise them, and after a certain point, they have to go ahead and be independent. and then the kids go and be independent, and they have to live their lives, and therefore there is a disconnect, as it has happened in some of the more I will not say Western, but more advanced countries, and that kind of idea of family and the responsibilities is also becoming more and more global. And so that is also one of the aspects of that is influencing this. And it is not just about children caring for the elderly. I think it's the general society as a whole that has the responsibility to care, children included. I'm not excluding that, but general thing as a society. And some of the solutions that Mr. Mishra has suggested, and Anupama speaks directly to the, how to address these issues. So.
Thank you so much. And we have just, I think, a couple of minutes to sum up. So what I just wanted to say is that overall, what we are listening to is that we need to raise awareness on the different dimensions of a woman's life wherever she's discriminated. Not that there is men don't face a problem, we're not saying that, but it's much, much more with women, as we all know. And women definitely have to we have to gain the knowledge and awareness about our rights. The other aspects are what our panelists have spoken about, and that is regarding the national policy for older persons. We need to work a lot on advocacy. White paper, of course, is very important, and somebody has already said that it's already ready. We just need to forward it to the Prime Minister's office. Public spaces, places to be accessible to senior citizens. I think that is something that we can do. We can work on it. We from the college, we worked on getting traffic signals so that people with disabilities could cross the roads. We've done that. So this is something that maybe colleges of social work like us can go ahead and work on. Colleges of social work and teachers training colleges have a big role in helping out in all these things, especially in terms of training, capacity building, research, evaluations. So those are the things that I feel can be done. Also in terms of access to health care, which is again pointed out by our panelists, it's something that these are the way forward on which we all have to work on. I'm sure that this is a very this is a group here which is very interested and very wanting to take things forward. So on that note, thank you very much. And I wish this could go on because everybody has to say so much. And I've put down so many points, which of course it has been recorded, but really gives me hope that, this conference has taken place or is taking place. And we have, of course, miles to go, but we can definitely do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
To the moderator and to the organizer.
Sailesh, thank you.
Okay, over to Sister Patricia.
Okay. It's my privilege to thank the esteemed members of this panel, Dr. Shailesh, Anupama, Dr. Wahida, and for the excellent job being done by Ma'am Geeta to highlight the important points of this discussion, which has been really enriching and enlightening. I think aging is a reality that all of us need to accept, that we will all get there sooner or later. So it is not something that we can ignore or we can take for granted. As we come towards the end of this day, it is my privilege to thank all the people who have been part of this discussion today and who have enlightened all of us. I think all of us gathered together, all the participants and the speakers are united across the borders, across our various backgrounds, in our belief and our commitment to the cause of the vulnerable, to give voice to the voiceless, to protect the vulnerable. We may call them by different names, but these are all members of our society who are discriminated at different levels, be it in the name of gender, be it children, be it vulnerable adults, the older, the senior citizens. And I think today we can easily say we have been able to see beyond because we have been standing on the shoulders of stalwarts. all our panelists, right from the first panel, the second panel, beginning with Sister Ananda, Ma'am Linda Lane, all of them have been stalwarts who have been working in the field, who have been working for years and laboring with for a cause which they have dedicated themselves with great gusto, and they have been facing a lot of struggle over the years. And what we have heard today has been the fruit of these efforts, the fruit of their experience, and we have been grateful to receive this and to be enlightened so that we can join with our own mights. So thank you very much to everyone, and thank you for all your active participation and making these discussions very engaging. We look forward to seeing all of you in great numbers again tomorrow, same time, using the same link. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sister. Thank you, all of you. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.